All right, let's kick off. Francis Tamer Show, episode 7, I believe. We're joined here by Dr. Andrew Alphonse.
Thanks. Andrew's fine. Where's episode 2, bud?
Look, episode 2 is a bit of a mystery episode. It's a bit of a mystery episode. I actually recorded an episode not long after the Tony Abbott episode, and I just never released it for a number of reasons. But I think the less I give on it, the better. It just becomes this mysterious missing episode.
And when you get $100 million Spotify contract?
Yeah, and look, I'm not far off. Look, Andrew, something you need to understand. The Francis Tamer Show is blowing up. It's huge.
Oh, I believe you.
I can easily get at one time 5 to 6 people watching my videos. You know what I mean? And so I'm trying to build this sort of like, this. I want the episode 2 to be like an enigma. What happened there? And then just in 10 years, when I release my documentary, Last Dance equivalent documentary,
like platform 9 3/4.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Takes you to a special place. So tell us a little bit about yourself before we dive in.
So my name's Andrew. Born Australia, grew up in Lebanon for a couple of years. Very close mates with you. I work as a doctor, hospital. I'm still a junior, so I don't call any big shots, but I do really enjoy my job. And I've got a lot of hobbies. And I like teaching. I like learning. I like cars. I like a lot of cool things.
Yeah, awesome. Before we jump in, I think I'm going to adjust your gain a little bit.
Yeah.
So we avoid some of the audio problems we've had. How's my voice sound, by the way?
Yours is really good.
Very consistent?
Yeah, but I'm closer to the mic than you are, and my voice isn't as loud as you.
It could
just make sure the volumes are equal there, and then it'll be the gain.
Actually, no, this is your whole feed, so it should be the same. Let me just check them, because I noticed
intermittent. Yeah.
We'll see how that is.
Yeah. Oh, that's way better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way better. Awesome. So you're a doctor. What took you down that road?
This isn't news to you. What took me down that road? My dad telling everyone in my life since the age of 4 that I was going to be a doctor. I say I'm not ashamed of this. Like I got into it. I worked very hard to it, and I didn't fall into it. Like I purposely worked for years to get into it. But I only pursued that. So I didn't try first into uni. It was after getting into uni and picking the 2 broadest degrees, commerce and science, and then hating absolutely everything and thinking that my degree was a joke and it was teaching me nothing. And the one thing I enjoyed was pharmacology, and that's because I could apply the skills to helping people. And I realized that's medicine. So then I studied and worked a couple of years and got in. And it just so happens that it's the perfect career for me. I actually love it. It's really
perfect
really cool.
For you. How? Like for your temperament?
I think that because medicine's so varied that you can have your temperament can be perfect for an element of medicine no matter what temperament you are. It's a very, very broad. I think there's something like over 40 specialties. Don't quote me on that, but something ridiculous. But it just so happens to be the perfect mix of, because I love relating to people. That's something that really means a lot to me. And I can relate to literally anyone because health is universal. So I can teach someone, or not even teaching, like I can talk to a teenager about like how their body works, or I can talk to an 85-year-old as to what their medication does and why they feel dizzy. I can go up to a random person that I just met and being like, oh, hey, did you know that the weight that you lose is actually the carbon dioxide that you breathe out? You don't sweat it out, or you don't excrete it in the bathroom. I love walking into a room and having someone trust me just simply because of my studies and the dedication that I've put in. Like I'll walk into a room and ask a patient anything about their lives, and nothing's off limits. Now, obviously, I do it for an appropriate reason. But like, I'll ask them, where do you live? Is it a house or a unit? Who do you live with? What do you do? Are you employed? And these things are all necessary because to treat a person, you have to treat them holistically. So many of our patients will, so I'm currently on vascular surgery, but so many of our patients, and probably the majority of them, will stay in hospital or get access to other teams or services like physiotherapy or social work, or have other specialist teams come and see them to review them because you're treating the whole person. You're not treating just the disease in front of you. I think you spoke in a previous episode about the biopsychosocial model. No one talks about it in medicine, but that is the approach. Like, we do learn about it in med school, but then you just forget about it, and it's something that's ingrained.
Yeah, that was the episode with Nathan Dogood, aka Doogie D, aka Dogood Physio.
Yeah.
Great lad.
Yeah,
cool. And do you wear that jacket in the hospital?
No, I wear a green scrub shirt.
Yeah.
This is the jacket that you and Gadi absolutely hated when I bought it.
To be fair, Gads hated it more than I did. I said, look, I probably wouldn't wear that, but it doesn't surprise me that you bought that in Japan. This was in Japan, by the way, earlier this year.
If anyone needs a reminder, we went to Japan.
We went to Japan in January, but Gads was pretty much traumatized.
He was aghast. He could not tolerate me wearing this or buying it, and I actually love it so much.
Yeah.
It's actually my vibe.
Your vibe.
Yeah.
It's pretty iconic. And so more importantly, for those that don't know, you're pretty much Australia's number one eligible bachelor.
Why?
Right?
What do you mean?
You're the number. I mean, can you name one bachelor more eligible than you are?
I don't have a list.
I have one, and you're at the top. So, yeah, that's rough, man. I feel for everyone out there, all the guys out there who are in relationships who haven't yet, put a ring on it.
They're just waiting
because no one's safe.
Yeah, no one's safe when Francis Tamer's on the prowl.
No, don't put it on me, mate. I'm committed only to the Francis Tamer show. That's my one true love. But people got to watch out for. So look, you and I have been mates for a little while.
Yeah.
There are many things that we enjoy talking about, things that we disagree on, things that we agree on.
Yeah.
We both share a love of podcasts. You had a podcast yourself called Real Talk with Andrew, which is on a temporary sleep, bit of a hiatus.
Couple of years sleep.
Yeah, but it might be coming back. That's the word on the street.
Maybe. I really want to. I love podcasting.
Yeah.
I love the entire process. It just embodies, I love to just get to know people and be vulnerable with them. And that's what medicine does. And podcasting does that, but on a wider scale, because you're not just limited to treating someone's illnesses. You're talking about anything.
So what you're saying is I could become the ultimate doctor.
Yeah, 100%.
Well,
Dr. Phil's not a medical doctor, but look at how much good he does.
Isn't he?
No, he has a PhD.
I thought he's a psychiatrist.
I think he's a psychologist, or he got a PhD in education or something. But he's got a PhD in, it's a philosophical doctorate, not a medical doctorate.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So everyone's got a chance.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. So given your love of podcasting as well, I thought we'd bring you on the show. We'd crack open a few topics. We'll crack open this whiskey from Simon, which has become pretty much an icon in the show already.
Yeah, it's actually a beautiful bottle.
It is. The bottle is gorgeous. Yeah. So we'll crack that open when we need that extra little.
As per the last episode, lubricant.
Yeah, lubricant. Yeah,
social lubricant. Yeah.
That's right. That episode was 3 hours, by the way. It's going to be a tough one to top.
I haven't finished it yet.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I have this issue where a lot of my mates feel the need to tell me and explain to me. I had a go at your brother the other day.
I've been there. Yeah.
He has to explain to me why he hasn't finished an episode. And honestly, I forgot it, but I was going to bring my hat just for your brother today because he criticized my hat from the last episode.
Yeah.
But I don't want to let him think that I'm thinking about him too much because we all know what that does for your brother. But
shots fired, man.
Nah, look, we're gonna talk about what it's been. Oh, look, this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning.
We're gonna record a diss track.
There's a lot to happen here. Basically, we need to bring honesty back to the internet.
Yeah,
that's the problem I'm finding out there. Is there isn't enough honesty out there.
It's actually all fake.
It's all fake,
and it's done immeasurable damage to society. It's so sad.
You know what? I messaged the other day. I learned a new phrase. Thirst trap.
Thirst trap, yeah.
Have you heard? Did you know there was a thing?
Yeah. I'm part of the culture, man. Yeah.
I'm not. Like I just pretty much entered when Kendrick and Drake had their thing.
Yeah.
Now I feel like I'm part of the culture. But
I watched that concert, by the way. The Kenny and Friends.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so good.
5 times in a row.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
It was awesome. You've got all these guys just chanting.
Oh, do you know who
obscene
Dr.
things.
Disrespect is?
I've heard of Dr. Disrespect.
He's
yeah.
like a massive Twitch streamer.
Honestly, I heard of him today.
Oh, he's been massive for ages. So he's probably taller than you. I think he's probably your height. He's like 6'5", probably your height a bit taller.
6'5" is taller, yeah.
Yeah. So, and he's like jacked, and he always wears like this really tight shirt with these like snowboarding glasses, and he's got a mustache, and he's just very iconic because he's very savage with the way he says things, and he's a larger than life personality.
Yeah. I'm actually jacked as well, but I just wear looser clothing. But yeah, we're pretty much the same, yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So then he got banned off Twitch very abruptly like 4 years ago, and no one ever found out why, and it only came out like yesterday or very, very recent, like within the last couple of days, that there's very serious and apparently substantiated allegations of him sexting an underage girl using a Twitch platform, which I just find crazy. Like if you're a streamer and you're a massive public personality, that's literally the last thing you should be doing.
Have you heard of John Zerka?
I've heard that name before.
John Zerka and Heel Mike. So John Zerka is not the biggest streamer, but he's a streamer. He's been on like Fresh and Fit. He's known for his, inflammatory hot takes on everything. He actually went around the city looking for this other streamer called HK Tiki Toki or something.
Oh,
I think I sent you the video.
Story. I do know the story.
He's literally wearing UFC gloves to go and fight this guy.
He's jacked. Like he's
big.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say he's like ripped, but he's
is he
pretty
bald
big.
as well?
No, he's not bald.
I remember him wearing a Hawaiian shirt and him being on the street trying to beat up this guy or something.
No, so the guy in the Hawaiian looking shirt was the Tiki Toki dude.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And John Zerk is walking around with UFC gloves to fight this guy.
Yeah.
And he finds this guy who's already had a couple of drinks with his girlfriend or whoever she was. And he starts pushing and shoving. He actually throws a punch at him. Anyway, this Tiki Toki guy who's probably like 30% lighter than him.
Yeah, he's way smaller.
But he's lean. And
30% is very substantial.
In fighting, for sure. He ends up dropping John Zerka multiple times. It was quite funny. But so John Zerka is now under fire for streaming himself with underage girls.
In what way? What was he doing?
Like they're just streaming, they're hanging out, he's getting all touchy, he's kissing her neck, him and this other guy, Heel Mike, they start making comments and joking how they don't really care that they're underage. And it was this big thing. I can probably find the video.
And they're streaming doing this.
Yeah, they're streaming themselves.
Surely they're like, I don't know.
Look, eventually, if you're a degenerate, you get done for it. That's my view.
And, publicizing it for the whole world to see.
Yeah, you can only hide your degeneracy for so long before the internet comes knocking. But yeah, what you mentioned sort of reminds me of that.
It's really sad because people really put their best foot forward, and there's so many lies out there on the internet. And then it comes to show that half of them are either cheating on their spouse or doing something deplorable. Or
And look, that's the trouble with having a sort of an online personality is there's this really strong temptation to ensure that your online personality is impeccable. And the deeper you go down that rabbit hole, the harder it is to get out. And that's why I think when you're making content, it's really important to be authentic and genuine. And this is something, I've just started this, right? But I also struggle with the certain things like, should I make it known that I think this or don't know this or think this? And, we were speaking about it the other day, me, you and your brother, when, Christian mentioned a term which I didn't understand. And in that moment, this whole thought process went through like, do I admit I don't know what he's talking about?
Yeah.
Do I ask? And it's really hard to stick to that commitment to, hey, I'm not just going to be that guy who's trying to project an image.
Yeah.
Mind you, these guys like, who are living in this degeneracy, I wouldn't even say that they're at that level of, just trying to appear good. Like they go online, they make themselves out to be these macho, masculine guys, and own girls on all these, different podcasts and whatnot. but they live like deplorable. They
Yeah.
get done for some deplorable things.
Yeah, yeah.
I've actually got the video here. Have you heard of Abba and Preach?
I'm not familiar. No.
You know those two guys. I thought you're part of the culture, man.
I just show me them. I don't know their names.
Man.
I'm sure I recognize them when I see them.
I'm part. I never thought there'd come a day I'm more part of the culture than Dr. Andrew Alphonse. John Zerker. I would ask Jamie to pull that up, but
The only Jamie you have was me in episode 1.
yeah, that's right. You were the first and only Jamie I've ever had.
Yeah.
Other than that, I've had nothing. Did they remove the video? Wouldn't surprise me.
Another point to consider with these online personalities, though, is the temptation that comes with the attention. And I think that someone who isn't formed and doesn't actually give a lot of attention to ensuring their spiritual and mental well-being is actually progressing and maintaining properly, I think it's inevitable that they fall into degeneracy.
I think the video has been removed. This is quite interesting.
Mm.
Basically, they play literally just snippets of videos from their streams.
Yeah.
Of them effectively with underage people. Yeah, it's very strange. Like it's actually very hard to explain.
I'm sure it's on the internet somewhere.
Yeah, it would be. It would be, but we're probably not going to find it without a full-time Jamie.
Yeah.
And look, sponsorship's still coming through. You know what I mean?
We're working
it's a slow
on the whiskey sponsorships.
It's a slow process. But have you seen those shows where like the girls line up with balloons, and then a guy walks in, and as soon as they're out, they pop it,
and they pop it. Yeah, those shows are so ratchet. yeah. I've never watched the show properly. I've only seen like snippets when other people comment over the top of it.
Oh yeah. Those are the funniest ones.
Yeah.
But even shows like that, there are so many of them, and it just shows you just how bad the internet's gotten in terms of like that narcissism or seeking attention.
Yeah.
Which like this is going back to our original point when I learned about what a thirst trap is.
Yeah.
Because in setting up this show, I had to set up a TikTok, and I never thought I'd say that, but being on TikTok, man, I've never been so confused in my life.
Yeah.
Like, what am I looking at? And you come across videos like all these. Some of it's entertaining, some of it's a good watch, some of it's just trash and ratchet, whatever you want to call it. But every now and then you come across a video, and it could be someone with a particular skill, or they're doing something particular, and she just might be a really gorgeous girl, and it's like, oh, she's obviously getting views through that avenue.
Yeah.
And I get that. But where I started to get really frustrated is you have some girl post a video of her just like of her head, and she'll sing like mouth the words to a song for like 6 seconds.
Oh, you're talking about Bella Porsche?
Yeah, like that sort of
also
stuff.
fell into degeneracy.
Yeah.
She cheated on her husband. She was married.
Yeah.
And she cheated on him with I think a rapper or a celebrity or something. It's actually very sad.
It's very sad. Yeah.
I don't wish fame on any of my close friends or enemies, really.
It's dangerous, man.
I think it takes an incredible amount of self-control and resilience. And the thing is, fame will spread you thin.
There's so much temptation involved with fame, like, and especially when it's such a sharp rise to fame.
Yeah.
You don't get any time to sort of adjust to it.
Yeah.
And so I came across this video, and it literally runs for a few seconds. I'm going to show you this video so you can see.
Yeah.
And when I tell you how many views this video got, it's going to shock you. Let me just see how do I.
You know, I try and understand the evolutionary basis behind people's infatuation with things like this. So, for example, like a woman's face will flush. It will vasodilate after she engages in sexual activity.
Yeah.
And so lipstick and blush are meant to imitate that. And so our primate brain will associate a blushed face with a woman who's just engaged in intercourse. Or heels will elongate a woman's legs, and like these things all have an evolutionary basis.
And you think that's what they feed off when they're making this content?
I don't think they do it on purpose. I think that they just find something that works.
Attracts the attention they're seeking.
It's sort of like survival of the fittest, right? Like they just try everything out and see what sticks.
Here we go. So this video got 860 million views.
All right.
You don't understand how annoyed I got when I saw this. I didn't know what the word is. What
how
is
long,
with these?
How long is it?
It's 6 seconds, 7 seconds.
All right.
So just have a look.
Oh, I have seen this. Yeah. Well, I was one of those 800 million. I don't even have TikTok. Yeah. So my best guess as to
It's 12 seconds.
Yeah, literally. It's just her trying to look good and make herself look good as well.
Now, do you know how I learnt this was called a thirst trap? This girl appears on some other show.
Yeah.
The Sidemen or whatever.
Yeah.
And when they're interviewing her, it's like, oh, what do you do? She's like, oh, I'm a social media, whatever. And I sort of rose to fame when I posted a thirst trap video. Like it's self-professed.
I wouldn't consider that a thirst trap.
It is.
I'd consider. I thought to qualify, you'd have to be more overtly sexual.
No.
Okay.
It's just to make people profess their attraction. To you.
Yeah, fair enough.
She's Aussie, by the way.
Oh yeah.
But 12 seconds.
Yeah.
She's not even singing. But she's not the one singing.
She just wore makeup on and got into a car.
Yeah, and like she would scrunch her nose and wink. And it's like, man, if I scrunch my nose and wink at someone, I'll be arrested. So
can we just like get a picture of your driver's license?
Of my driver's license. I'd have to do it with and block some man, if that goes on the internet, man,
you're done for, man.
I'm not even worried about people on the internet. I'm worried about the people closest to me.
But just to go back to my point on evolution, right? My best guess. So I watched this thing about Zoom before as to why it's so exhausting mentally. Because you're just seeing close-ups of people's faces. And on an evolutionary basis, the only time you get very close to someone's face for a prolonged period of time is if you're fighting or you're literally having sex. And I know there's other situations, but that's the majority of them.
It's a very intimate.
Exactly. And so you're very stimulated and it's hyper stimulating. So if you have 25 people in a Zoom room and you're very close to their face, that's very mentally draining. And so I imagine the reason why that got so many views is because it kind of stimulates this false sense of intimacy with this girl because you're very close to her face.
That's very interesting. There's an author, her name's Vanessa Van Edwards, and she's also a psychologist, and she's got a book called Cues, Master the Secret Language of Charismatic Communication.
Yeah.
She's done a few podcasts as well, and she talks about this stuff, and she pretty much says for a video interview, you don't want it to be of your face because it's actually very exhausting to sit there 2 hours like that close to someone.
Yeah.
You know, imagine someone went right up to you and they spoke to you like that for longer than like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, like you're linking that to the video, like her being real upfront and personal just creates this false sense of intimacy. But honestly, it drives me insane.
This is literally all I think about.
For me, it's the worst kind of content. It's just pure narcissism.
100%. But to qualify what I was saying, it's not the closeness of someone's face. It's I try and understand the reasons behind things. I try and break them down to literally the molecular level for everything. And that's what I love doing about every aspect of life.
So how do we stop it? Like, I mean, at the end of the day, videos like that, and I'm picking on some random girl. I don't know who she is. Power to her. But just generally, the content that doesn't really add, in my view, any value, there's a market for it.
Of course.
So, like, how do we stop the market?
And to be honest, like, we're all guilty of it. I equate it to junk food, right? Like, it's not very nutritionally dense, but it takes up a lot of calories. And so this junk content will take a lot of time, but not be fruitful in terms of like giving you mental stimulation in a good way.
Yeah.
Personally, I think the only way forward, because I don't think the human brain is strong enough to resist this. So I genuinely think these things are engineered to take advantage of our evolutionary brain. And so as a result...
Forgive that little interruption. I mistakenly thought I mistakenly thought that the audio wasn't recording, but it was. Maybe I will keep all of that in there.
No, don't keep the whole thing.
There's just a lot of bleeping. There's going to be a lot of bleeping when I stood up, but
or if you want, just don't keep it in there and just say "Ma khallayt Allah kalmi."
Yeah.
That's it.
Which means there was no word left unsaid.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to our worldly narcissism.
Yeah. So I was saying that
You were equating it to junk food. How junk food, for very little nutritional value, you're consuming a lot of calories, and you're saying content like this, consuming it is the same thing.
Yeah, it consumes
It has
time.
very little value, but it consumes a lot of your time and energy.
And we pay attention, as in you pay it. It has a value.
Mm.
And for example, like Jordan Peterson talks about this, your attention is equivalent to worship. And that's why, for example, in the ancient Egyptian religion, what was it? The pharaoh, and who was Horus, the god, or Ra, the god of the sun. I think Ra
Is Ra.
It's his symbol is the eye, and the entire point was to have vision of something, to focus on it, and I think the longer something has been observed, the more true it is. So the idea of focus as a central notion of importance in someone's life goes back thousands of years. That shows you how true it is, how fundamental it is to humanity. And so I can't blame an 18-year-old. I can't blame anyone for being addicted to TikTok, because it's engineered to take advantage of
That's true.
your natural physiology. And so the solution for me is just never get involved. Like I watch YouTube, I listen to podcasts, I'll do all that stuff, but I've never gotten TikTok. I think the solution has to be to reinstate purpose in one's life, because then you will naturally seek out the things that are of value. Yeah.
In a way, I don't think it's so bad for a late teen boy or girl who's spent time on TikTok, because it almost means their path off TikTok will require effort and sacrifice, and they've seen the other side.
Well, this is coming from someone who I've been addicted to YouTube in the past. Like I used to play when I was in high school. I used to play like 8 hours of games a day, or like I've been there.
The good old days.
Yeah. Minecraft till like 2 a.m, or
I've never played Minecraft for a second.
It is literally the best game ever made.
The best game ever made.
100%. It's just so it's.
Don't you just build stuff?
You can do whatever you want. There's a story you can build. You hang out with your friends. You make a house. You gather resources. It's cool.
I don't know, man. Like at this age, you still feel like that's cool? Like to build a house and hang out with your friends in it?
Yeah. I still think, do I have time? No. Will I do it? I haven't played Minecraft in years, but.
Do people make money on Minecraft? Like how does it make money?
YouTubers. Like you can stream it, you can play.
Like stream yourself build. Is there like a storyline?
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
So there's a story to Minecraft.
Yeah, there is. But it's not that long. Like you can finish it in, I don't even know how long. Probably like a week or two. You can speedrun it.
What's the premise of the story? Like what's it?
So there are milestones, achievements. I haven't played in a couple of years, so there's probably changes from since I've played, I've been active. But essentially you have achievements, and you'll gather different levels of resources, and those will allow you to get better and better materials. And then, for example, one of the hardest materials to get is obsidian. That allows you to build a portal to the netherworld, which is hell, literally. Like it's about fire and lava everywhere. Yeah. And then you can find a portal to another place called the end dimension, and there's a lot of things. There's achievements you can do.
Yeah.
There's temples, there's things you can find that spawn villages.
Is it still big now? Like, is it still a thing now?
I don't look at stats, but I imagine it's probably as big as ever.
Yeah, well.
It's just, it has universal appeal, because you can be 5 years old and just build a crappy hut made of dirt, or you can be a intricate builder. And I know 30-year-olds that are really into it.
Look, I guess the good thing is you don't have to worry too much about your kid being like corrupted by some degenerate crap that pops up. It's just a very good game. Like the worst you can do is just kill someone too many times. Or like, is it online? Like you see,
you can.
Oh, you can go.
You can do single player, or you can share a world with people. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on from Minecraft.
No, I'm just interested to understand. I'm trying to get with the culture.
You're a minority, man. Everyone
I
has
am.
some
Look,
culture.
I've been a bit of a cultural hermit the last few years, and I'm trying to come out of that and understand the world
Yeah.
a little bit more. I'm not sure I'm enjoying it, just the world generally, but it's worth learning. Okay, so you used to play Minecraft a lot, used to game a lot.
Oh, this was years ago. Yeah.
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 I was more of a Modern Warfare 2 gamer.
Yeah. I never got behind games like shooting games because growing up, my brother would always snatch the consoles off me. So I grew up on the only console he didn't snatch off me, which he eventually did. We're just taking digs at my brother.
You took the dig, cuz. I didn't say anything about your brother.
So it was my DS, and so I grew up on Nintendo, Mario Kart, Pokemon, things like that. Yeah. I'm a massive Pokemon fan to today.
You are a massive Pokemon fan.
Yeah.
When we went to Japan, you had to ship stuff back to Sydney.
It was like three massive boxes, I think.
And I had stuff of yours in my bags too. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. So continue your point. So you used to game a lot.
Yeah. So I've seen the other side of culture. Like I've been there, and I recognize just how fun it is in the moment. But you don't have a long-term idea of your life's trajectory. So I attribute a lot of the good things in my life to small sacrifices I made along the way that I probably wasn't even cognizant of half the time. So when I was younger, my dad, he sent me to tutoring 3 or 4 times a week. And that's paid off with now me being in a career that I will love for the rest of my life. Or he took me to guitar lessons, and now I have the skill to play an instrument for the rest of my life. Am I rusty? Probably, but I can still play, and I'm probably better than the average person. There was a period of a couple of years where I literally didn't go out. I didn't do anything. So in early university, I still hadn't decided what I wanted to do yet, and so I was just going out, hanging out with friends. Like I bought my first car. I played Pokemon Go till 4 a.m. when it came out. Things like that. But as time progressed, I spent a couple years working really hard, not going out. I would literally study 8 hours a day to get into medicine because you have to do well in your degree to get the marks. Then you also have to pass the UMAT, whatever. And so eventually it was that sacrifice that paid off forever. Or I collected Pokemon cards like in 2016, and I made smart decisions as to what I thought would retain value. And now years later, they're actually like pretty good investments for the money I put into it. It's just things like that. Like I think the trick to it is tricking your brain into enjoying something that will pay dividends later on. And so
delayed gratification.
Yeah, but it just depends on what habit you're forming. So you
but that's what makes it so hard, because all these social media platforms like TikTok, the whole short form content thing, which has become huge in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
It's making it harder and harder, along with instant streaming services. It's making it harder and harder for anyone to think about long-term gratification and sacrifice short-term gratification for that.
And the highs are much higher. So I think that what people have been lulled into doing is living a life that if this is zero, like horrible life experience, no enjoyment, they're just at a basal level. There's no spikes. But what life actually is like this. So you go through really high highs and really low lows. And I'm not saying like massive highs, like, oh, you'll be a rock star who does drugs or whatever. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you'll have good days and bad days. And the entire point is you show up regardless, whether it's a good day or a bad day. But you will never experience life truly if you sedate yourself. And that's actually what it is. It's sedation. It's an anesthetic. You're actually numbing yourself to reality by getting your dopamine hit off these instant gratification services. So I've been trying to, and like it actually hits you. Like the thing that happened to me recently, I like Central C is this like, he's a UK rapper, right? And he's the content of his music is degenerate. Like it's literally just, it's sexually explicit, and he just raps about money and women. That's literally all he talks about. And like contraception and abortion, like he literally, like that's what he raps about. But I just like the beats of a couple of his songs. And so I was like, oh, it's fine. Like I'm smart enough to not be affected by these things. And then a couple of weeks later, I was like, oh crap, like He's probably one of my most listened to artists in the last couple of weeks. And then I started like, I would sing the songs in my head. And then I realized, holy crap, like this is degenerate. Like he's actually affecting me. And it's very true. The eye is the window to the body, right? Or the eye is the window, whatever the quote is. And so in the end, I was like, all right, that's it. I'm going cold turkey off Central C now. Like I'm not going to listen to him anymore. And I've just been listening to Arabic music, for example, because it's much more wholesome. So it's very innocent and it will creep up.
It does creep, yeah. I agree with the creep. Problem with Arabic music is it can be a bit soppy.
Yeah, there's different genres, man.
I don't know, man. Like, yeah, there are, but it's like in my head, this is where Lebanese people are going to be upset with me. But it's like mad dubka music or it's just soppy. You know, you just have some guy like simping, like every song is just him simping over someone. Yeah, but he lives the most promiscuous lifestyle in reality.
Yeah. I think there are a couple more variations instead of just pure soppiness.
It's not just the two?
Well, for example, there's a song by Wa'il Kfouri, like it's called Mdalla Liti. It's literally, Mdalla Liti just is a word that means my love or like my boo kind of thing. And the entire song is about him being a simp. But then there's another song, like there's so many songs that encompass like being a simp or actually just heartbreak. There's different elements.
That's what I mean. It's all soppy. So
yeah, but
give me something that doesn't fall into either of those categories.
I was listening to Milhim Barakat earlier today. Like he's really good.
Was it dubki music?
No.
It's like type music.
No, Milhim Barakat, man. He's old. Like he literally the entire.
Oh, Milhim Barakat. I thought you meant
Milhim Zain or something. No,
yeah, forgive me.
So he literally like he the entire point of him is to sing about the most innocuous things, like just about the mundane of
You're
life.
right. I agree with Milhim Barakat.
But there's so many more. Like my brother will educate both of us.
Yeah, your brother would be seething right now.
He'd be angry.
Speaking of Milhim Barakat, this was what reminds you of Milhim Barakat.
Oh, don't go there.
It reminds many of us.
Yeah. Shout out to Peter.
A story for another day.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I agree that it does creep, but I think it's quite hard to get out of the habit of valuing short-term gratification over long-term gratification. I think my personality struggles with it.
Oh, 100%. Me too. I think we relate in that way.
Yeah. It's always been hard for me to think about like the very long term.
Yeah.
And those who are really successful, it comes a lot more naturally to them.
Yeah. 100%.
You know, whether it's like you're studying for something, you're working in a business, you're starting a podcast, whatever it is, it's the long term
100%.
that seems to make all the difference.
There's a video I watched recently of an analysis of the most successful people in show business. It's like Taylor Swift, Dwayne Johnson, Mr. Beast, like all these really prolific celebrity types. And the thing that they all have in common is just it's endurance. They've all been there for a very, very long time. Like Taylor Swift, she's been famous for almost 20 years now. Rihanna's the same. Mr. Beast has been making YouTube videos for over 10 years. And they just keep going at it and eventually they blow up. It's inevitable. How many podcasts have so much viewership and it's actually trash? Like there's no content there. The people, like, it's very clear to me that so many of these podcast hosts are genuinely unintelligent. They don't know what they're talking about and they don't care. And it's fine to be unintelligent because as long as people enjoy what you're doing and they relate to you, that's fine. But I just got no value out of that. And so,
but just because you didn't get value doesn't mean other people don't, right?
Look, it's either a poor reflection of what society is, but I like to be more optimistic and think that people just aren't exposed to
better
what's better options out there. I went to have dinner with my mate from high school last week. Shout out to Navindu. He's never going to watch this.
You never know.
You never know. I have optimism. Anyway, so we went to have dinner and me and him used to be in the same band in high school. He was the bass guitarist. I was the guitarist. And he's really big into funk.
You were in a band?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was called...
We'll circle back, yeah.
So he was the bass guitarist and he's really into funk. And so he would play for me some of his favorite funk bands. And it was so good. Like we would just... we went to have dinner and then We went to Costco, like we just farted around Costco for like an hour, just buying things that we didn't need. It was a fun time. We're just catching up, talking, and like buying an unnecessary large packet of socks, for example, whatever. And then we listened to funk in the car for half an hour, and it was so good. That music was incredible, and I never would have been exposed to it if it wasn't for him. And I've just been listening to like my same playlists, which are pretty good, but like I've overused them by this point. So I think there's so much out there, but people just settle for what's comfortable and easy. But there's so much variety. Like like John, Daddy's brother, he's a really big foodie. And so he's always telling me like, oh, you should go to this place in Surrey Hills. You should go to this place in Darlinghurst. You should go. And I've been going. I've just been making day trips of them before vascular surgery. We were talking about this before. Don't have too much spare time now, but it was actually so good. It was just, I felt as though I was really living life. Like I would always talk smack about Sydney. And then when we went to Japan, it was like, oh, Japan's amazing. Like there's so much nightlife and there's so much good food. But Sydney has really good food as well. It isn't as dense and easy to access as Japan.
Yeah.
And not as cheap either. But there's so much enjoyment to be had. And I realized like the world really is a playground. It really is an oyster.
Yeah. It's a lot closer than we realize.
Yeah.
There's that famous saying in Arabic, Der al-Arib ma bishfa, which means the closest monastery is never good enough. You know? And that's what our parents used to say to us. Yeah. It's my parents used to say it all the time. And you know, we'd be like, oh, we're going for dinner in Strathfield. And they're like, oh, what's wrong with the restaurants around here?
Yeah.
You know, and it's this whole concept of we think that which is further away is somehow better.
Well, isn't our Lord said it himself when he said, a prophet is never welcome in his own city? Something like that.
Yeah, he did say that. Yeah.
You know, that always takes me back to an idea of the perception of distance being necessary for travel. So it's actually crazy because I hated English in high school, but there's a book that I did for, I think, year 12. It was a book called The Art of Travel by Alain de Botton. He's a French writer or something. I should forget where he's from. But he wrote a book entirely about the philosophical and literary approaches to travel. And one of the approaches was distance is not necessary for travel. Like you can read a book in a chair in your bedroom and be transported mentally into a different place. And that still constitutes as travel if your mind is taken away from the mundane activities of your regular life. For example, like, let's say I was catching a bus to school, and because I was in school at the time, I was reading the book, and I just thought to myself, I was like, man, someone catching a bus in Parramatta, like they would probably think this place is so much more interesting than me, but to me, this is just another bus ride. So I do very highly recommend the book, but I think that there is a very big approach to towards travel or just difference in your regular life, and it all comes from perception. And so distance is one way of doing that. So one thing we were talking about earlier is, for example, like you don't want to talk about work when you go to the gym. That is a form of segregation that you will use to enable you to travel. The gym for you is travel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, look, it makes sense. I'm not quite sure I resonate with the whole concept though. Like you're traveling every time your mind is in a different state. Like, is that what you're saying?
You could think of it like that. It's not necessary. So all I'm saying is the rest that people associate with travel
can be achieved without physically
correct
traveling, you know, across the ocean.
In fact, it can actually be achieved through just a change in mindset on even a mundane topic. That it's one of he does many approaches in his book.
Yeah, I get you. No, that I agree with. That you can have a very similar outcome.
Yeah.
Without feeling like you need to physically travel so far.
Yeah.
I mean, you can book a nice Airbnb in the city for a couple nights. You don't need to fly up to Queensland or fly to, you know, some other country to do so.
Yeah. And that's why, like, obviously as living expenses get higher, people talk about staycations now.
Staycations?
Yeah.
Just when I thought I understood the culture.
Look, I don't have a textbook definition, but you can look it up. But it's
staycations.
Yeah. but it alludes to the idea that I was talking about just now.
Bro, did you just make me Jamie? The hell?
I played the Uno reverse card on you.
Yeah. A holiday spent in one's home country rather than abroad, all spent at home and involving day trips to local attractions.
Yeah.
So it's like a broke vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fair enough. Look, I don't blame anyone. I've probably done a few of these myself.
Nah, bro, you went to Japan.
That's true. I went to Japan. But look, that was the only time I've really traveled outside of going back to Lebanon. And growing up, we thought going to Lebanon was a holiday. Like going to Lebanon.
Don't take me there.
Going to the village and watching like animals hung outside butchers, and you've got like 3 hours to pick up a cut before it goes off.
Cleaning the house you have in Australia, then going to Lebanon to clean the house in Lebanon.
Pretty much.
It's not a vacation.
Just driving and there's just piles of rubbish.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, the airport's closed and you're leaving Lebanon. You're being smuggled through Syria to come home.
Which is funny because I say this as someone who's going to Lebanon next month.
You never know.
Yeah.
But it's not exactly a holiday destination. I mean, look, Beirut's, I'm told, you know what? I've never actually spent a day in Beirut. I've just arrived at the airport and then we go straight to the village.
Yeah.
And so I've never really experienced the more touristy parts of like Beirut and stuff.
And as we get older, that will change for us. So the last time I went was in 2019. I was 21 at the time. And so back then, that was the first time that I'd been there as an adult. And I had my own money and I could go and come as I please. And I had my own, I went with my friends and we stayed in Beirut like for almost a week or so.
Mm.
And that was a completely different experience. Because growing up, I would only ever go around and like my dad would drive me to an attraction or I'd spend time with my family or in the village. And this time, like, because I'm well older now, I'm completely independent. It's to the point now where I imagine I'm going to have a completely unique experience compared to anything I've ever had before in Lebanon.
Mm.
I would argue that my experience of Lebanon was not as complete as what I imagine it to be this time.
Yeah.
And that's why I look forward to it, because I'm coming into it with a fully developed mind now and being able to interpret it myself, not having anyone present it to me in the way that they want.
Yeah.
So yeah. I do really look forward to that.
Yeah. Are you looking for a wife there?
But you know, what's actually crazy? I haven't given this thought once, and you're like the fourth person to say that.
I'm just asking, man.
That's so like
it's very typical, you know. Go back to
really
the homeland, and
I never think I've genuinely.
You need a wife. Someone there needs a visa. What's the problem?
I feel like everyone's more concerned about my vocation than I am. I don't know.
No, I'm just asking if that's your intent. You can just say no if it's not.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
Would you consider it?
I don't have any plans. Whatever I'm presented with, and if it's God's will, let him take the wheel.
Man, that's such a cop-out answer, man. When people just start talking about God's will just out of nowhere because they don't want to answer, like they've got a specific answer to every question.
Yeah.
Then you get to a question, they're like, oh, whatever God wills.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, happens.
I genuinely...
It is what it is. I'm just saying, like, would you...
I genuinely haven't given this thought. And do I want to come on this public platform and say my preferences as to whether I want... here's another term you may want to look up. A passport bro. You know what a passport bro is?
Someone that goes overseas to get married?
I'm pretty sure that's what it means. Yeah. So, anyway. No.
What are you worried about? Navindu's not going to watch this episode, apparently.
No, I'll send it to him.
Yeah. All right, fine. Just think about it. I don't know. I'm just interested to see what moves are next for Dr. Andrew Alphonse.
I go to Lebanon and there's a woman that looks exactly like you in a wig at the airport.
Exactly like me. That would be damn terrifying. Man, just the thought of that gives me anxiety. No, I don't think you have to worry. It's always been a tough one. Is your old man a proponent of getting married from finding a spouse back in the homeland?
No, he's not really fussed.
He's not fussed, like either or?
No, either or. To be honest, like he has different minds about it sometimes. Sometimes he's like, no, she has to be Lebanese. She has to be like completely fluent and cultured and blah, blah, blah. And then other times, like, you'll go to a random wedding with a Vietnamese person, he's like, oh, she's pretty. Like
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really affect my perception or
Yeah.
what I'm looking for. So.
But you're not, are you like, do you have sort of strict requirements culturally for a spouse?
Not necessarily. I would say I'm very culturally Lebanese, and I would prefer someone who is either on a similar level to me or keen to at least be engaged in Lebanese culture. I think that it's very rich, and I think that Lebanese culture has a lot of benefits. So, for example, I think that some people can interpret Lebanese culture or conservative Christian culture, or whatever, as being repressive to women, because like a girl, her parents wouldn't want her to go out, for example, as much as they'll let her son. Typically, I'm not saying every family, but a lot of them will.
Yeah.
And whilst I can understand that perspective, I also I'm not saying what I personally believe in, but I do think that it does place a lot of value on the woman, because they're saying that you are worth so much that you are worth protecting. Which is not to say that you should lock your daughters up and throw away the key. But all I'm saying is there is a benefit to every single approach. And I grew up Lebanese. I am Lebanese. And I do want to maintain that culture. Yeah. When did this become about my preferences in dating life?
Hey, look, you don't know where the wind takes the conversation.
Yeah.
And honestly, man, when I announced that you were coming on the show, I probably had 300-400 messages asking about your relationship status.
I somehow don't believe there was an announcement or that a single message was received.
Look, you can answer what you want. You can choose not to answer. It's up to you.
Yeah. I've been pretty forthcoming, I think. So.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And it was nice that you don't think people should lock up their daughters and throw the key away. That's always a
How
nice,
progressive.
Yeah, it is progressive.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, the Lebanese culture does cop a lot of flack.
Yeah.
We're known for a few things.
Yeah.
I've always struggled with our culture. I mean, I consider myself pretty culturally Lebanese. I probably speak the language like, I don't know, 75%.
I think you're pretty good.
70 on a bad day, 80 on a good day.
Yeah.
But it does come across, it can from, here's what I think it is. I think the Lebanese culture doesn't seem to take or pay much attention to how rough it can be around the edges.
Okay.
I don't know if it's just our language, but like we can come across very aggressive. We can sound very aggressive or abrupt. Our language, in my view, look, again, this is going to upset a lot of Lebanese people, but I don't think our language sounds very nice.
Interesting.
I don't think it does.
It's extremely poetic, right?
Look, it's poetic, but like just on a day-to-day basis, there are so many other languages out there which I think are so much softer on the ears.
Like French is so sexy. And then Arabic, like I'd be talking Arabic on the phone with my dad, and then I'd be in front of one of my mates from high school who's like Chinese, for example. And then I'd get off the phone, and then my friend would be like, "Why are you angry? Or why were you arguing?"
Exactly.
My dad was asking me what I wanted for dinner.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And even in terms of how we communicate, like we don't, I mean, at least I know growing up in my family, there wasn't this huge sort of emphasis on please, thank you, excuse me. You know what I mean? Like if my dad's trying to get through, he'll say zih, which means move. You know, but like I just feel like in like a white culture, if you're walking past someone, you say move. It comes across so much more passive aggressive.
Yeah.
And then you're lucky if passive is even a part of that, you know, like
they go straight to aggression.
That's what I mean. But our language, the Lebanese culture, where it just doesn't sound as the way we speak, if you translate it exactly. It sounds horrible.
Weird. It's very weird. But with that being said, I think that I'm not exactly sure what came first, the chicken or the egg, but the language is very indicative of the culture or vice versa. So, for example, I've said this before in the hospital when translating for a patient, and I'd be like, I can't tell them exactly the exact time in Arabic. It's just not possible. Like, for example, now the time is 8:34, right? You can say 8 ونص و5. Yeah, how do you say 8 ونص و5 دقايق? Like, how do you say 8:35?
That is 8:35.
Yeah, but like, is that even properly correct in Arabic?
Yeah,
like 8 ونص و5, like,
yeah, but saying 8:34,
you can't.
you can't.
But all I'm saying is in Arabic, like, you can only go in 5-minute increments.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can-
that's right.
So, and then that's reflective of how Arabic culture is not exact. So if you go to a plumber in Lebanon and you're like, hey, I need you to fix this pipe in my house. They're like, yeah, كون عندك بعد الظهر. I'll be there in the afternoon. The afternoon is after 12 o'clock. But you'll see him next week on Wednesday. Like, there's a lot of Arabs are late. They're never early or on time. And that's reflected either in the language. So either the language is reflective of the culture or vice versa. Because you can't tell the exact time. People's perception of time, it becomes distorted in that way. And they don't value it to the minute. I'm really not sure.
Yeah, I agree. We've never really been that precise with our
Yeah,
times. But I will just also add, Maronites are not Arabs.
yeah.
Look, I'm just saying.
You know what? We pick and choose, right? So
I don't pick and choose, to be honest. I don't know the Maronite. Like, look how pale I am.
I'm very pale.
We're, especially up in the mountains, we're pale. We got the ginger beards.
Yeah.
Okay, this is like, we did not originate from what was once known as Arabia.
Yeah.
We are the Phoenician people.
I'm very familiar with the Phoenician history.
We invented the alphabet. Okay.
Yeah.
We're something else.
We were the first entrepreneurs. So we would sail across the world selling spices, like, to Europe and China and things like that.
We're, like, the Phoenicians were the very first people to just flat out say to someone else, big job. They were the first ones.
Yeah.
Before them, everyone else was charging reasonably. The Phoenicians rocked up and they started pulling
He'd come in
coin.
with some, like, Indian turmeric in Europe, and he was like, 3 shekels of silver for that regular ginger. This is 7.
100%.
This will cure.
Original entrepreneurs, the original big job doers.
Yeah.
That's what we originate from. That's why we're all dodgy and our politicians are. You want to talk about Lebanese politics? Or
we can go.
Not, maybe not before you go to Lebanon. Maybe
it's just a red dot on my forehead when I show up at the airport.
Pretty much. Maybe when you get back. No, I agree. Our culture's always been a bit. I think it's a good point that the language seems to reflect culturally, how we are. And I've always found it very abrasive, like the way we speak. See, when I grew up, Arabic was my first language, speaking at home. And eventually when we learned English, originally I would sort of translate things from Arabic to English when I wanted to speak. And it meant I was a lot more abrasive. It comes across as rude, you know, but in our culture, it's not rude. When I first went to Lebanon, I thought people there were rude. I'm like, man, these people are.
But what's weird is Arabic is very posh and not posh, the opposite of posh. But it's very considerate. So and there's a lot of affection in there as well. So for example, like,
agreed, yeah,
your dad will call you dad,
yeah,
and that kind of puts you on the same level.
Honestly, I didn't know that wasn't normal for everyone else.
100%
until like 10 years ago.
When I was
like 18. I'm like, man.
I was a bit earlier than that. I was in year 5. I was 10 years old. We were on the bus to some excursion in year 5, and then I got like, my dad dropped me off in the bus, and he kissed me goodbye, and he's like, "See you later, Dad." And I'm like, "See you, Dad." And I get on the bus, and then the teachers, like, a few minutes pass by, and they look at me. They're like, "Andrew, why does your dad call you dad?" I was like, "What do you mean? Like, that's normal. Like, everyone does that." And I only found out at that point that was only in Arabic.
Yeah, and we're just so used to it. Like, if my mum is going to message me, she messages and says, "Hi, mum."
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
She says, "Hi, mum. You know, can you do this? Can you do that?"
Yeah.
And that's normal for us. Hi, mum. Hi, dad. That's what our parents. But I think some other cultures do it as well. Is it like some of the Polynesian cultures? I think I've heard do it.
I'm not sure.
But yeah, it's not really like a white thing. Man, it was weird growing up. Like I grew up in I'll just say a white suburb. We don't need to identify suburbs at this
Sure.
point in time, but
Yeah.
growing up in a white suburb, I had to learn a lot about how Aussies were, like your typical white Aussie was compared to how we grew up. So I grew up in most of the school was white,
Mm.
very small group of Lebos, maybe a few Indians, whatever. But there was a lot that was different. Like even the way we eat,
Mm.
the way we have meals. If I went over to like a mate's house and he was white,
Oh yeah.
it was like, oh
You're not
guys, it's time for like,
fairy bread. You get one piece.
yeah, it was like dinner. It was like 3 chicken wings each.
Yeah.
My mum orders 15 kilos of chicken and like has to mix it in her marinade in like an industrial mixer. And it lasts us probably a day and a half, you know.
Yeah.
But it was very strange for me.
Yeah.
We've never had the concept of supper. I was like, what the hell is supper?
I don't even know what that is.
Honestly, I thought supper was biblical
Yeah.
only.
Is that just dinner but biblical?
No. Supper is like a small,
No, it's a small meal before
or
dinner.
snack.
Yeah.
No, after dinner.
After I'm stuffed. Yeah, I have no idea.
Is it before? Anyway, we probably wouldn't even know.
If we had Jamie, we'd know. Yeah.
Yeah, if we had a Jamie, they could just pull that shit up, but we
Yeah.
don't. But it's
Yeah.
just fine.
Yeah.
But I didn't know any of that, you know? I didn't know that like there was something called afternoon tea.
Yeah.
I thought they would drink tea in the afternoon. I had no clue.
When I get home from school, I just have like, I don't know, a piece of water anab or something. I don't know.
Well, when we got home from school, that's when we would have a full meal.
Oh yeah.
Like we would have a full blown, like that was like, I don't know, our dinner equivalent.
Mm.
But after we'd have our full meal,
Then you'd have another meal.
we'd eat again later.
Yeah. I was the same.
You know, we never really had like, oh, dinner's at 6:30. We never ate at 6:30.
Yeah, no.
You know, so this was all foreign for us, and our parents, like my parents, didn't really know how the outside world operated.
Mm.
You know, they came here, they were imports and whatnot.
Yeah.
So we had to sort of just learn and pick it up as we go.
Yeah.
You know, and probably say some dumb crap along the way to white people.
Look, I'm not saying this is dumb crap, but like growing up, my dad would always say, "How are you, my dear?" or "Thank you, my dear," to everyone.
Mm.
And like he'd be getting a ticket from the teller at a movie theater,
Mm.
and he'd be like, "Oh, thank you very much, dear. I appreciate it." And I was like, "Dad, what are you doing? That's not normal in English." And nowadays, I call everyone dear in the hospital.
But isn't that normal?
I don't know. I don't think so, because I think he's translating it from Habibi, because it's like Habib Duck is dear to you.
Mm.
I don't know. I really don't know.
It probably is actually. Yeah, they do say Habiba after everything.
Yeah. So, or like, for example, like you can say mate in Aussie, but in Arabic you'll say khayyir, which is brother. Like it's a much closer thing than mate.
Mm.
Yeah, it's just reflective of the culture. I think about this also more than I need to.
Well, I didn't realize how import I was. Like, I don't consider myself an import. Like, I was born here, I was raised here.
Yeah.
But learning the like Arabic being my first language, mind you, it's not the formal, for those listening, it's not the formal Arabic, you know, you hear on the news, which I still don't understand.
Yeah.
It's like a spoken colloquial Arabic specific to the Levantine.
The Lebanese dialect.
Yeah. Levantine region. But growing up that way, it actually meant that I'm a lot more import than I care to admit.
Well, you know, one thing I wanted to touch on was that, so in my primary school, it was probably half Lebanese and half white. That's actually it. Like we didn't really have many Asian or Indian or any other cultures really. And I didn't relate to any of the Lebanese people in my grade because they're what I typically associated with your Aussie Lebs. So they talk like this, and they all like Nikes, and they all got like skin fades and like, sure, I'll cop a skin fade once in a while, but what I'm saying is they were Aussie Leb. They weren't Leb. I find that people's perception of Lebanese is like your Bankstown, Auburn kind of whatever. But people in Lebanon are very different compared to that. They're actually very classy. Like Lebanon in general, it's a very, like people there are very posh, and a lot of it, they'll pretend to be more posh than they actually are. So it's to a fault almost. But
yeah,
just to say that I they considered me to be the anomaly out of the Lebanese people in the grade, when I was more Lebanese than all of them. Like, for example, they'd never been. I grew up there. They couldn't speak Arabic, and their idea of being Lebanese was, oh, I have 50 cousins, and my parents drive a Porsche. Like, that's it. So, I definitely. Or I'll give you another example. There was one time I was like 7 years old or something, and I was at Officeworks, and so we backed out of the car park spot, and it's just this random like small shit box, like just speeds across the car park and stops right behind my dad as he's pulling out, and like we were in a sedan, like we were in a big sedan, and so his little shit box just like tipped over to the side, and it copped a bit of damage, right? And this 6'5" black guy comes out of the car, and he's juiced, like he's massive. Gets out of the car, and he gets so cut. He's shouting at my dad, and like my dad's a tall dude, but he's not going to compare to a 6'5", 20-something, probably like very young. My dad was, I don't know how old he was at that time, probably 50, and he was like, it was getting physical, like they were pushing and shoving, and all because this guy came out of nowhere and just like was speeding through the car park, and his car got dinged. So instinctually, I say, "Bayi khalas." Like I speak in Arabic. I don't know why. And then,
which means,
"Dad, please stop." And then the African guy says, "Did you just say khalas?" Like he speaks Arabic, and he was like, "Are you guys Arabic?" And then I'm like, "Oh, like we're Lebanese." And he's like, "You guys are the sorriest excuses for Lebanese people I've ever met." And because, and that kind of like really, like I didn't understand what he meant by that, because obviously he's hated and he's just insulting and he's inflamed, whatever. But surely there's something that he's basing his reckless accusations on, or they're not even accusations, just his insults. And my dad explained to me that like Lebanese people across the world, like people really like them. Like they're actually considered very generous, very, very open, very like friendly people. And then when you come to Sydney and you have a lot of the people in Sydney who are like ethnically Lebanese, but not culturally Lebanese, they're more of like your Western Sydney types or whatever. They stick a bad rep for people that are more culturally Lebanese. And that was the first time that I ever encountered that idea, which like came as a bit of a surprise to me, but then I realized like, oh, how come all these people are really tanned and like they talk like this? But then when I grew up in Lebanon, like a lot of the people that I grew up around were very fair skinned, and they didn't have an accent that resembled the people in Western Sydney at all. Like they, if anything, they had an American accent, as evidenced by my brother. But yeah, so I do think that there is a difference, a disparity between what is actually Lebanese and what people in Sydney think is Lebanese.
Yeah, interesting. So you're saying that those who are culturally Lebanese in Lebanon are the ones with the more positive global reputation, etc.
I would say so. Yeah. But and like there's negative characteristics in every culture. Like for example, a lot of people will associate arrogance or entitlement with Lebanese population.
Yeah, I'm probably one of those people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably associate entitlement and selfishness.
Yeah.
Not to every single Lebanese
No,
person,
but a lot of them have that.
It is something that our culture struggles with.
I agree with you.
Especially in Lebanon.
I agree with you. I do think so. I'll give you another example. This was yonks ago, but I used to work in a pharmacy, and this old Lebanese lady, she wanted more Panadols than what was allowed. There's certain laws around. You can only sell, I think it's an S3 or something. I forget. But you can only sell 2 at a time. Two per person, and it was on sale and it was very cheap, and she wanted to send back to Lebanon a bucket load of them. So she finds out I'm Lebanese, and she's like, "Oh, Habibi," and all these things, and she hands me like 10 boxes, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I can only sell you 2. And she gets so incredibly angry, and she just has a rant. She starts screaming the pharmacy down. She's like, "You're the problem. You're exactly what's wrong with Lebanon. Why Lebanon's so corrupt." And I thought to myself, I was like, "Wait, aren't you the exact
How did
reason?"
you contribute to the corruption?
Wait, I'm trying to uphold the rules. Aren't you the one that's using nepotism?
Yeah.
And like the exact reason why Lebanon's in such a crappy state. Anyway.
But how I don't understand how does she link what you're doing to
I
corruption
genuinely
in
have no
Lebanon?
idea. I actually did not understand the way she put 2 and 2 together.
Was she older?
She was like 60 something, yeah.
Yeah.
She was a bit older.
Well, what you should have told her is corrupt politicians are her children. So
Yeah, that's actually, yeah, they are younger than her. Oh, that specific part out.
what have you done? Remind me before you release to make sure that part's cut out.
Yeah, sure.
We just cut out like a 5-second segment there,
Oh,
so we can just disregard. But no, look, on the whole issue of like political corruption and whatnot, without getting into specifics, my view's always been that those who like to criticize our generation forget who raised our generation.
Mm.
And ultimately, there needs to be some accountability. If you're someone in Lebanon, it's a problem. People take money. They take bribes to vote.
You get flown out. How many people have had their tickets to Lebanon sponsored by someone so that they can come and vote?
Yeah, if you've made a vote on that basis, you're part of the problem.
Yeah.
If you take money, I don't care which party. I don't even know like too much about the parties. And it's probably a good thing because I prefer to focus on the higher level issue of like the cultural corruption that's occurred. But if you've taken money, you're part of the problem.
I remember during the demonstrations after the port, 2020, actually, sorry. When was the port, 2020?
No, the port was later than that, I believe.
2021. And I forget. But during the demonstrations and then the revolution, people were saying, down with this system, down with this corruption.
Oh, you're talking about that the revolution.
The Thawra.
Yeah, that was actually instigated by a suggested WhatsApp tax.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. I'm getting my events mixed up because
that's right.
The port
was after that.
The port was after that.
Mm.
So I'm talking about the Thawra, which is after that. I think it was like a 30% or 30 cent or some tax for WhatsApp, which had people up in arms. You can touch everything. You can ruin my country.
Don't touch their WhatsApp.
You can't touch my WhatsApp.
I think for them it was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm making a joke of it, but yeah, it obviously was. But the reason I bring this up is to say people were talking as though they were the product of a system that was so broken, which I agree there's corruption at so many levels in Lebanese politics. But the thing is, the country voted in those sets of leaders.
Yeah. It's democratic.
Yeah. So it's pouring from that bottle is actually a bit difficult, eh? But the dexterity you have is impressive.
I've trained for this my whole life. Yeah, I agree. Look, this is something where I've had some confrontations with my fellow Lebanese people here, who have come from there, about the state of Lebanon, and I used to have a much more sort of compassionate outlook towards Lebanon, and I still do for a lot of people who genuinely suffer.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the concept of personal accountability, where it's absent, there will always be problems. That's just how I look at it. Anywhere, in any country.
At every level.
At every level.
Yeah, that's right.
Literally in your home, in your own bedroom, out to your family, the wider family home, to your street, and all the way up to the highest position of power.
Yeah.
That's why the president of El Salvador is so refreshing. Yeah, because this guy is like sits in a room with every politician and says, you will all be investigated. Don't worry. If you've done nothing, you got nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
You know, and just like doesn't care and knows he'll probably be assassinated one day.
Yeah.
But that's what we need. Cheers.
Cheers, brother.
May you get many more jackets.
Amen. That's gorgeous.
It's the good stuff.
That's actually very, very nice.
We're not mucking around here.
No, we're not. Wow. And the taste afterwards is actually even better. All right, I'm digging it.
It's good. Simon did a whole little masterclass on
Yeah.
how to smoke it. That was the cigars, on how to drink this.
It's like sweet as an aftertaste.
Mm.
That's really nice. Yeah.
Beautiful aftertaste. Excuse me. So Tucker Carlson has been in Australia.
Oh yeah, I've seen a couple of posts about that.
Man,
I'm a big Tucker fan.
Oh,
I think he's
Tucker's
really
great.
cool.
Carlson's awesome, and what I would do to have him sitting where you're sitting right now.
Oh my goodness.
Not to replace you. I would never
let him replace me.
No. I could never do that to you, but
he's actually incredible.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that he does, he stands by his values at almost any cost.
His episode with Joe Rogan was phenomenal.
Oh, phenomenal.
Yeah.
I love that.
Guy just knows about everything.
Yeah.
But he had that run-in. Did you see his run-in with the Australian media?
I saw a post about it, but I didn't finish the whole video.
How far in did you get?
I forget. I was at work at the time and I was busy.
You know what? I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you this video because trust me, it is worth it. I'll forward it a bit because it's quite long. It's like 25 minutes, but
yeah, I remember it being a bit long.
He talks about gun law as well.
Okay.
Which is a
topic close to your heart.
Very close, yeah. One of my personal favorites.
I've never actually enjoyed the taste of whiskey before.
It's beautiful.
It's actually nice.
All right, listen to this reporter.
Soil suggests not a friendship, but a master-slave relationship. And I'm just not into it at all. And I don't think you should be into it either.
You can see that, yeah?
Yeah.
Thanks, Tucker. One final question from the press gallery. Kat
Canberra.
Wong from AAP.
Hi, Tucker. Thank you so much for your address today. So you talked a little bit about immigration, and in the past you've talked about how
so weird
white
hearing an Aussie
Australians,
accent.
Americans, Europeans are being replaced by non-white immigrants in what is often referred to as the Great Replacement Theory. This is the same...
Have I said that whites are being replaced?
Well...
I don't think I said that.
Well, it's been mentioned on your show 4,000 times. And
really, when did I say that?
On your show.
I said whites are being replaced?
You have said that before.
Really?
Yeah.
I would challenge you to cite that because I'm pretty sure I haven't said
Nice.
that. I said native-born Americans are being replaced, including blacks.
Native-born Americans.
Native-born Americans.
And
Americans who, like black Americans, have been African Americans, have been in the United States for, in many cases, their families over 400 years. And their concerns are every bit as real and valid and alive to me as the concerns of white people whose families have been there 400 years. So I've never said that whites are being replaced. Not one time. And you can't cite it.
Untrue.
So we just met, but when our relationship starts with a lie, it makes it tough to be friends. So let's pull that back. I'm happy to explain what I do think.
So,
well, you actually can't cite it because I didn't say it, and I don't believe it. And I'm telling you that to your face, so why don't you just accept me at face value? My concern is that the people who are born in the country are the main responsibility of its leaders. And as noted earlier, when those leaders shift their concern from the people whose responsibility it is to take care of to people around the world to put their priorities above that of their own citizens, that's immoral. And they are being replaced in my country, people who are born in the United States. And the birth rate tells the whole story. They are not at replacement rate. And so the U.S. population is growing because we're importing people from other countries. And my view is that happy people have children, and a functioning economy allows them to do that. And we don't have that. And so you need to fix the economy and fix the culture and make it so that people who want to have kids can. You don't just go for the quick sugar fix of importing new people. Like, that's my position. And if you think that's racist, that's your problem.
I never called you a racist.
That's very eloquently said.
But of course you are suggesting, and
Well,
I must say one of the
suggesting that
reasons
white
people don't
people-
like people like you in the media is that you never say exactly what you mean. Your slurs are all by implication, and you're about to tell me the Great Replacement Theory is racist or anti-Semitic, whatever. I've said what I've said to you right now like 100 times in public. I hope to, if I live long enough, say it 100 more times. I think it's completely honest and real, not racist or scary. It's factually true. It's not a theory, it's a fact. And the whole point of your question was to be like, you're a scary racist.
Well, I haven't
And
actually
my
finished my
response is, no,
question.
I'm not. Okay, well, how about no more lying in your questions, and then I'll answer.
Okay. Well, This is the same theory, or as you say, idea, that has inspired the New York Buffalo shooting where 11 Black Americans
Oh my goodness.
You know what I mean?
Americans were killed. But it's also inspired
She
it's not-
conflates
it's inspired
patriotism.
the worst, one of the worst Australian guns
How do
of
they
all
get
time
people
to
this
shoot
stupid in the media? I
Oh
guess it
my
doesn't pay
goodness.
well. Look, I'm sorry. I've lived among people like you for too long, and I don't mean to call you stupid. Maybe you're just pretending to be, but I've never. I'm totally against violence. I'm totally against the war in Ukraine, for example, which doubtless you support. And like all dutiful liberals, support more carnage. I don't. I hate mass shootings, actually. Nothing I said, what does it mean to inspire something? My views are not bigoted against any group. They're honest, they're factual. That's not hate, that's reality. And my views derive from my deep concern for Americans, actually. Americans aren't having kids because they can't afford to. And nobody in
How
charge
could you not
cares.
see reason in this?
And so that's my position. That doesn't inspire mass shootings. How dare you try to
gets
tie me
worse.
to some lunatic
Oh,
who
no.
murdered people? How dare you, actually? And in fact, I mean, do you know what I mean? I'd be like, Hitler wore those shoes. A lot of people are saying that you're like Hitler. Can you explain those shoes? Hitler wore exactly the same shoes, and you're like, I've got nothing to do with Hitler. Well, that's how I feel about your absurd, disingenuous question.
He's very
Right,
eloquent.
so therefore you support gun control?
What? I thought it couldn't
don't
get
want any more
dumber, but it
shooting?
did. No, I don't support disarming
so good.
law-abiding people so they can't defend themselves. So the government has a monopoly on violence? I don't think so. First of all, in my country, that's illegal, as you know. But moreover, it should be illegal in every country. A sovereign person has the right to defend himself and his family. Period. And that said, I'm totally opposed to harming anyone. Anyone. Have you been calling? Are you concerned about the war in Ukraine? And the countless innocents being murdered there every single day? I doubt you are. Probably Putin bad. I am. I'm a Christian. I hate violence. I hate mass shootings. I have guns at home and often on my person when I'm in the United States, I'm proud to say, because I want to defend myself and those I love against violence. That's the point. I'm not perpetrating crimes. I'm not shooting strangers. I'm defending what I love. And if you're against that, I guess I would ask why. Why would you be against that?
Well, so you don't think you harbor any kind of responsibility for these hate crimes?
Oh, man. He was actually having a conversation
I'm trying to
with
be
you.
charitable. I'm trying to be charitable.
Just move on.
I was like, maybe you're just pretending to be dumb. Now I don't think it's an act.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh,
That was actually funny. That was good.
Yeah, but like it's pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, for her.
It's embarrassing for our country that like this is what our media drummed up
Yeah,
for
yeah.
someone as big as Tucker
Like,
Carlson.
that's the best that you can do.
Yeah,
Like,
like
literally the most.
yeah, you're
bait.
responsible for these hate crimes, and when does it end?
Yeah,
But I think he handled it well. I think
he did very well.
I think people like him can't be too. You can't be too calm with them. Like you got to
No.
be very clear. Like, hey, I think you're being stupid right
Yeah.
now, because
Yeah.
they're out to get him. Like
Yeah,
that's the
that's right.
reality.
Yeah.
And I think this is like the Trump effect, really, like learning to deal with the media like Trump did.
Yeah. Okay. I think I think Tucker does it a bit better than Trump.
Yeah, yeah. Well, whether it's
Trump does it to the lowest common denominator.
yeah, I agree. But he was the first one that would flat out like just tell off reporters.
This is fake news.
Yeah. He didn't care. But yeah, like the Tucker Carlson's a great example of what happens to someone when they're not under the umbrella of large media.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of big media.
Well, he's no longer under Fox, and then after that happened, he's just blossomed.
He's blown up. He's got
Yeah.
the Tucker Carlson network, which is just him at the moment, as far as
Yeah.
I'm aware. But he's bloody huge.
I'm sure he'll do
he
very
friggin'
well.
interviewed Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
Like
And-
that's insane.
Look, I listened to that. It was just like a Russian history lesson,
Yeah.
and I didn't retain much at all because it was just like very didactic. It was just
Yeah.
like this, and I'm like,
You got to move
Right.
a bit closer to the mic.
yeah. So I wasn't completely sold on that particular interview.
Yeah.
Well, like, let's be real.
I mean, the fact he even landed that interview,
oh, it's huge.
like if you're going to interview Putin, let's be real, you're not going to be able to sit
You're not
there
gonna
and
get
just
one.
say whatever you want,
Yeah.
you know, and think he's just going to say whatever.
You walk into the
like
Kremlin,
it's-
like you better be on your best behavior.
Putin's crazy, man. He's a beast. Honestly, I know a lot of people hate on Putin. I have a
Yeah.
lot of respect for him as a leader. Let me be clear. I don't know a lot. I don't know too much about his geopolitical decisions. So I'm not talking about very specific geopolitical decisions, but as a leader, he's done a great job for his country. And that's all any country can ask from their leader.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is a guy, you know, if you like touch him on the shoulder, like 3 guys converge and slowly remove your hand and probably whisper a threat. No, I don't know what they do, but there's like that famous video of Conor McGregor having his arm around him and like they just, you know, lower his arm or something.
Yeah, yeah. I watched the video whilst I have zero expertise or qualifications. You don't need a qualification to have an opinion, but I just don't have an opinion on Putin as a person. I've heard conflicting things on both sides. Anything ranging from war crimes to him being an incredible patriotic leader. I'm not convinced of either. But what I'm saying is to go back to the idea of leadership, I think there's a lot to be explored. But anyway, let's move on from Putin. There was something I wanted to say about there was a story about a NBA player. He got a playoff ring, and he got to meet Vladimir Putin, and Putin goes up to him and he just does this, like he wants to see the playoff ring. So the NBA player takes off the playoff ring and hands it to Putin, and then Putin's just like, oh, cool. Then he gets up and leaves. He just gets off the couch and leaves, and he was in Russia at the time. And then this Russian basketballer gets up, is like, what the hell? Like, this guy just took my ring, and it's a playoff ring. Like, it's a big deal.
Like a championship ring.
Championship ring, yeah. And then his security guys are just like nothing happened here. What are you talking about? Like, you can't see Vladimir, you can't follow him. I've heard really cool and cooked things.
Yeah.
I just found that to be a funny story I wanted to share about him.
Well, you know what he did when Khabib beat Conor McGregor?
Yeah, didn't he he flew him all across Russia and got him heaps of properties.
He apparently gave him $20 million.
Yeah. Just, I'll believe that.
I believe it.
What's $20 million to Putin? Like, let's be real. And anyway, there's so many leaders in Russia, like, they have an absurd amount of wealth, but it's like government controlled, given by Putin, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, well, look, regardless of what's happening there, like, at least we can rest assured knowing Joe Biden's keeping him at bay. Like, when Biden's active, we can be sure nothing's going to go wrong. You know, because he's on the ball.
Have you seen the videos on Trump's Instagram page of Biden walking into a retirement village?
Yeah.
Oh,
the fact that Trump puts out memes is the funniest thing.
His social media team is on point.
Yeah, they're on point.
Yeah, like they're on the ball.
No, but with Joe Biden, honestly, there is this degree of safety you get from knowing that a human Roomba is in charge of the free world. Have you seen that comedian that says he's like, after he finishes a speech, he's like a Roomba. He just like starts walking around and bouncing off the walls.
I haven't heard it before now.
Until he falls off the edge somewhere.
Oh. I haven't heard it before now, no.
Yeah, the human Roomba.
Yeah.
He's good like that.
Or sometimes he'll like read out the instructions given to him. He's just like, turn around and thank the person.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He's read words on the teleprompter.
Yeah.
You know, that says like, read it again or say it again. He'll actually say it again. Yeah.
Oh,
that's the situation we're in.
Yeah.
You've been recently getting to the UFC.
I've been watching a lot of highlights, old fights, analyses. I've something about UFC. I have a lot of respect because I started doing martial arts about a year ago, almost less than a year ago, and I just have so much respect as a result for someone who's dedicated their whole life to fighting. I think that martial arts inherently requires so much discipline. And I think that martial arts, whilst it makes you more dangerous potentially, in reality, it makes you a much safer person. Because so you know how it says, blessed are those who are meek. But meekness is often mistranslated. So as in the word meek is correctly translated to someone who likes to avoid conflict. But I don't think that I think it was Greek initially with that part of the Bible was written in. But I don't think that word is accurately represented. So it's something more akin to blessed are those who have a sword and choose to unsheath it only when necessary.
Mm.
And I'm a very big advocate for having the ability to be very dangerous and choosing not to be dangerous.
Mm.
I think that's much better because that shows much more integrity and so much more virtue than someone who doesn't have the potential. So, for example, someone who's never sinned in their life, but that's because they've spent their entire life watching paint dry, versus someone who grew up in Gotham City. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I have much more respect for the person that's continued to overcome this external sin or whatever, the vices around them, compared to someone who hasn't had the opportunity to overcome those things. I'd rather affiliate with the person that stumbled and picked themselves back up again.
Mm.
And that's what I associate fighting with. So someone who is a fighter has the potential to be very dangerous, but knows how to control it because he knows what he can do to people.
Mm.
And like, if you're a trained fighter, you're not going to just randomly go out there and hit someone.
No.
So I have a lot of respect for fighters, and I see the changes that it's done to me.
Like what?
Just in my mentality. Like obviously there's been benefits physically. Like I can do, like I've become more physically fit as a result.
Mm.
And even just going to like a one session a week. But I just find that my discipline, or because my teacher, he'll like scream at us during the lesson, and he'll like lecture you as you're going through like a grueling training session. And I just find that resonating with me even during the week where I'm like really stressed or something's going on at work or whatever.
Mm.
And I find his words resonating with me in those times. I find, and I also think about this, right? I used to watch the show Naruto as a kid. It's an anime. And the entire idea of Naruto is there was a massive world war in the end. I'm paraphrasing very, very badly, but everyone came together to fight this common world-ending threat. And as a result, the best of everyone was brought out. But then as a result, they lived in an age of prosperity. Their kids. And so their kids didn't have to have it's the entire idea of good times make weak people make bad times make good people. You get what I'm saying?
Mm.
I think there is an antidote to that. So I think there's an antidote to easy times making bad people. And
I think it's easy times making weak people.
Weak people.
Weak and strong specifically.
Yeah, I think, did I use the word bad?
Yeah, use bad and good.
Yeah, that's
okay.
That's a moral implication, and I did not want to make a moral implication there. I think weak and strong is correctly what I wanted to say. But, so with that being said, right, I think there's an antidote to bad times making weak people, and I think that antidote is sport. And let me get with this. War. So every time you go out to play a sport, it's essentially a mini war. You're facilitating war just with lower stakes. And I think that humans need something that's high stakes to bring out the best in them. We need pressure to make the best out of us as individuals. Like, for example, if I didn't have the pressure of my dad to be a doctor growing up, I never would have done it. I didn't just wake up with that idea, but it just so happened to be the thing that is actually, like, no matter how tired I am, no matter how stressful work is, I will actually love it. I still love it every single day. And I'm incredibly grateful for the rest of my life that I can get to do this. But the reason I say that pressure was placed on me externally by my dad. And so as a result, that pressure forced me to become the best version of myself. And I think that when times are easy, and if you live in a first world country, you're not fighting for food or water, or generally your immediate needs are taken care of. It's pretty impossible to be homeless in Australia. Like, I work in the hospital. I deal with people every day that are genuinely homeless. There are so many ways to not be homeless in Australia. So obviously there are people that are homeless, but there are a lot of confounding factors with mental illness and addiction and things like that. But that's completely different. All I'm saying is, if you genuinely want a roof over your head, you will have a roof over your head in Australia. So all I'm saying is your immediate needs are taken care of. So when you're not fighting for your immediate needs, that's the equivalent of, like, compare yourself to your ancestors who fought through civil war, like our parents in the 70s in Lebanon, or the great grandparents of some people in Australia who fought in World War I and II. So what I'm saying is those times brought out the best in people, but we aren't going through the same tough times nowadays in order to bring out this toughness in us. But I think sport is a way to do that. Martial arts is a very good way as well, because the stakes are essentially life or death, but it's in a simulation where the risk is mitigated to a large extent. And so I think that the necessity of a high intensity sport, or specifically fighting, it can't be understated. Did you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's made me into a stronger person as a result, because you're kind of getting a small dose of that stress and trauma that's associated with, like, war, but at a very measured and controlled dose. And that's why I think, for example, like, Australia is so sports obsessed, or America is so sports obsessed. It's because it's their way of expending their frustration and energy. Didn't Jordan Peterson say, like, you don't want a partner who you never argue with? You want the ratio of like 6-1 or 7-1, something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
So you want someone who you're good 85% of the time, but then that 15% of the time there's a bit of friction, because it keeps it interesting. Because as a psychologist, that he's noticed that it's that frustration that keeps things going. It just keeps it interesting. And I don't know the psychology behind that, but I've observed it in the people around me. So many of my mates with their girlfriends, fiancés, wives, they will purposely agitate their partner. Like, they're not going to run them over with a car, but they'll do something that they know is annoying.
I hope not.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they'll do something that they purposely find annoying in order to get a rise out of their partner. And both of them will do it. The girls to the guys and the guys to the girls. And even though they're frustrated in the moment, I feel like it's something that brings them together in the end. I don't know why, but I can only find it to be akin.
Do you think it's a common thing to, like, deliberately frustrate your partner because if it's too smooth, it's a problem?
I don't think that they consciously do it.
Oh, okay.
I don't think
I thought
that,
you meant consciously.
No, I don't think anyone, like, hardly anyone will do it consciously. No, I think that subconsciously people just figure out that when there's that bit of friction that they like their relationships better. I don't think that it's something that they've been cognizant of. No.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned, like, the ratio of conflict or argument to non-argument. Did you hear about, have you heard of the soccer player or football player, Kaka?
Yeah,
He's a Brazilian legend.
He's huge, yeah. He's retired a while ago, I think.
Yeah,
right?
he's retired. Do you know about why his wife divorced him?
No.
Honestly, I'm going to put a hole in this iPad. This is the beauty of editing, is, like, I can edit out so much of what happened leading up to this podcast and the extreme frustrations I've had. I'm just trying to stay calm, you know? I'm just trying to pull up the full quote, because the full quote's actually kind of funny. And it sort of represents, I think, where a lot of men have become disenfranchised with sort of modern dating.
Yeah.
That's if it decides to load. You know, we've got this bloody modem here, which has cost us God knows how much. But that's all right. Doesn't need to work.
Blown a hole out of the budget.
And it's not like I'm with Vodafone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm with, like, Telstra.
No,
you know?
whenever...
If it was Vodafone, we shouldn't, like, be too surprised if nothing's working. These days, Optus is pretty much the same.
Yeah, Optus is the same. You know, someone's got that Telstra supremacy that when they put you on hold, it plays that music.
Yeah, exactly. That's me.
Yeah.
I have hold music. Anyway, it's not bringing up the full quote, but long story short, she actually said he never betrayed her.
Yeah.
What it came down to was he was just too perfect for her. The fact she had the audacity to say that out loud. Like, it would have made more sense for her to make up an issue that they had. But this was actually what she said.
That's so pathological.
Too perfect for her.
That's genuinely, you know, I've actually had that. So a mate of mine in high school, I'm obviously not going to say any names, but this guy was such a high achiever. Like, he he was one of those guys, like he was a state, like a national level sportsman in multiple sports. He basically got the highest ATAR you can get. He topped law, dropped out to make medicine. Anyway, he was dating a girl near the end of high school, and she ended up sparking something with a different guy. Whilst I'm not going to say cheating or whatever, I wasn't there and I don't care. But essentially, I actually had this conversation with her later on, and she said that he was too perfect for her. And she ended up dating this guy that she was talking to after my mate for years, and he lived in a different country, and like they didn't see each other for years at a time. And I just find that really weird. Like what's missing in your life such that you require pathology?
Maybe she just loved the drama.
Yeah. I always find that really weird as well. Like you'll go online and you'll see these girls being like, "Oh, I'm so toxic. Like I'll deliberately make him think I'm cheating or something."
I've seen those videos where girls boast about
girls and guys. Like the people just,
yeah.
I don't understand why they take pleasure in that toxicity. Like modern dating just sounds so exhausting. I just have I have no tolerance for games or drama or anything like that.
You just want to cut straight to it. You just want to Mrs. Dr. Andrew Alphonse.
No, it's
just like 1 month, 4 dates. You make it to 4. Final questionnaire, we're done.
Whilst I don't think I'm like that specifically, I do think that like I don't have a tolerance really for, oh, he responded in 2 hours, I'm going to respond in 4.
All the
things like that.
All the power plays.
A lot of games. I don't care. Like I'm busy. I don't care. Like if someone genuinely likes you, that's it. You'll move forward. But if they're playing games and playing hard to get or whatever, and that's what I don't get about these people. Like, are you trying to establish a relationship dynamic where it's contingent on the other person feeling as though they're going to lose you, and that's why they put in effort? Like, what's
good point.
What are you setting a precedent for here? So I just don't understand. And this is also what I think about a lot. And that's why I watch a lot of these ratchet videos. So Central C was completely different. I actually just liked his music, but he was degenerate, so I stopped. But with, like, for example, there's a YouTuber. She's a model. Her name is Kate Lavrentios, right? And I find myself, like, I watched her videos for like an hour or two one day, and she literally just talked about nothing but like her trying to become an amateur plus size model, and like hooking up with all these guys, and like it's really stupid things, like the things that she would get to when she was an alcoholic, and like so many different things. And I was like, I don't relate to her, like on any level, like, but I found myself listening to her and her friends like do a podcast, for example, because I just wanted to understand their worldview, because they were just talking about their rationality. They were like, oh, we went to a pool party wearing this, and they show a photo and there was literally no clothing. Like there was a triangle covering them. That's it. And I was just like, how do you walk out of the house? Like I just, it's so foreign to me. And so I genuinely enjoyed just trying to understand their perspective. And I do that with patients as well. So there are so many patients who interpret things so differently. You're just like, well, I can't, you see the world so differently to me. And you actually, like, it makes you question being like, wow, the world is such a dynamic place. Like I'm in such a small bubble. And anyway.
Yeah, you just come to realize just how diverse the frameworks are that people live by.
Yeah.
And think by.
Yeah.
And that's why we justify binge watching the crap we watch on the internet. It's fair enough.
Maybe, yeah.
No, I agree. I'm sort of the same. Like I have taken an interest in trying to, especially in my recent TikTok adventures, just trying to understand like what's the purpose here? Like what do I think this person is trying to achieve? It's like, these people with all their weird thirst trap singing or like mouthing the words to a song while they flick their hands, scrunch their nose, and whatever they do. It's like, what do you do that for? Like you put out a video and then you wait a few days till you need another hit? Like,
yeah.
I really wonder sort of what goes what goes through their mind. Because I could imagine there's a lot of, I mean, I spoke about this with Christian. I would imagine there's a lot of anxiety out there for people who are like internet personalities. Goodness. You could just imagine the sort of anxiety they go through trying to manage so many perceptions of them at once.
My daughter will never have Instagram. I think it is
What about your son?
Look, I don't want him to have Instagram either, but I think it's more imperative for a girl not to have Instagram. I've seen the effects on self-esteem that Instagram has done to the young female generation, and it's genuinely abhorrent. People, do you know why Gold Digger, like Kanye West's early songs were so good? Because he rapped about things that were genuinely real. So in Gold Digger, for example, he said, we're all self-conscious, I'm just the first to admit it. He was one of the first rappers to ever talk about the idea, because rap back then was all just like heavy chains, Lamborghinis, drugs and whatever, and girls. But he was one of the first guys to talk about self-consciousness or emotionality or family. And so that's part of the reason why he became so good. And one of the other big reasons is he's an amazing producer. But the reason I bring this up is to say people are so incredibly self-conscious. Like everyone is so self-conscious. And I would actually wager that the majority of what we do on a day-to-day basis, and I think the vast majority of people is out of self-consciousness. And it is quite unfortunate because I think that at a baseline, human societies, we're very social creatures and that's inevitable. Self-consciousness is inevitable when there's a status norm, a status quo to maintain. But I think that Instagram has it's portrayed a false reality. So I didn't have the Instagram app for years, but then I recently downloaded it. Why did I download it? Because I think my brother was graduating or something was happening, right? And I wanted the app to be able to post on my story. And I barely log on. Even I haven't deleted the app since, but I barely log on. And I realized I would log on. And I was just like, man, this is genuinely making me sadder because the same friends that I would talk to and see, and I knew what their life was like. The same friends that when I speak to them,
you were seeing how they're presenting their life.
Completely different. Yeah. They would talk about how frustrating their jobs were or how they're struggling in their relationships or with finances or my transmission on my car blew up and it cost me $3,000 to repair. And then their life, and the way they portray themselves on Instagram is this high roller, travel bug, whatever. It's completely detached from reality. And I thought to myself, I was like, man, if I didn't know that these people's lives are so removed from this would play on my self-consciousness so much. I would think that my life is inadequate in some way.
Which then begs the question, isn't it just as imperative for your son for a different reason to stay off it? Because
100%.
He might be affected in a different way, but on a number of levels, perceiving how other men are succeeding and perceiving what women look like and are like online can be very damaging.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
I didn't place enough emphasis on that. I think the point that I was highlighting was a more superficial one in terms of women just seeing the way
in which they're
look.
Affected. Yeah, it's very distinct. But I think even for a guy imagine a young guy going on, oh, and all my friends are doing this and they've got the money, they're traveling, they started a business and they did this and they did that. And it could also be a matter of, you say to your son, this girl seems sweet, same values, she's a pretty girl. No, and they just build this idea that they can do 1,000 times better because their standard of beauty is so damn high.
Yeah.
Because all they're watching are these people on Instagram
thirst trapping
and TikTok thirst trapping.
Yeah.
It still baffles me till today. Sometimes I just watch these videos in anger.
Yeah. I'm just how someone will actually scroll through and genuinely consume this unironically. I just find that.
Look, we got to be honest. Is my anger just out of jealousy because I could never pull off a thirst trap video? Look, I don't think
imagining you doing it.
I don't think I'm an ugly guy, but I'm not exactly a,
I don't think that you're
these people
800
level.
Million.
Yeah, look, I don't think I'd get 800 mil likes. Maybe I'd get 100 mil if I did an actual, real obviously I wouldn't do anything overtly sexual. because that's not who I am. But
no, all you do is you flex one of your quadriceps, and then the entirety.
This is where we move on.
The entirety of
this is this guy here.
We've touched the topic.
What quadriceps? You know, I actually have quad tendinopathy.
Oh, so, from what?
It's one of my latest injuries. Yeah.
The long list
of self-diagnosed injuries.
Are we getting to this part of the conversation?
No, look, we can get to the part where even though I have a few of my mates are doctors, I still don't believe in the healthcare system.
That's
I believe it's borderline fraudulent, and I believe any credibility you had left disappeared after COVID.
I actually
so from this point on, I will self-diagnose, self-prescribe.
Self-prescribe?
Yeah. I can't access the drugs. I just use home remedies at the moment. Yeah. Nothing does it like a good cold shower. That's my solution to everything.
You know the olden days how they just use leeches for everything?
Yeah, that's 100%.
It's just me. Cold shower.
That's me out in the yard, out in the wherever you source leeches. Where do you even find leeches?
I don't know, a swamp somewhere.
Some forest.
I have no idea.
Yeah. So look, I've had to take care of my own health because I've been let down by the healthcare system.
I go to work 11 hours a day and I just play Flappy Bird. For 10 and a half hours.
I believe it.
And then for half an hour of the day, I just step out with a stethoscope around my neck and I just like I like do a flexing routine in front of the patients. Like, you know, Mr. Olympia style.
But look, let's address the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
The arrogance of some doctors.
It is so rampant.
Like, listen, mate. Just because you read something in a textbook, I'm not saying it's wrong.
Oh my goodness. Like,
I'm not. All I said is, if I say to you, hey, Andrew, I read online that this happens. Can you tell me what you think? Oh, no, but, you know, technically in the book of anatomy, it says that. Like, just relax. Okay, we get it. It says something else in your textbook. Can you just explain how this thing has reasoned incorrectly? Nothing burns me more than speaking to someone in the medical field and they recite what is available in a textbook I could buy online.
Yeah.
I'm not claiming to know more than them, and I don't. And usually I'm asking. Usually it's like, oh, hey, I read this. That people have this experience. Oh, hey, I read that there are people living off the carnivore diet. Like, before you come in, like, oh, but the cholesterol, or oh, we understand cholesterol's bad for you, blah, blah, blah.
So,
but look into it before you come back and start spouting all your, you know, medical expertise.
I definitely agree. I can understand where that frustration comes from. And to tell you the arrogance of some doctors, I see it firsthand. Like, I knew about it. But now that I work in it day in, day out, it is crazy. And today was an especially arrogant day. Like, not for me, but just the people that I worked with. Oh my goodness. But the point that I'm making is there's a lot of confounding factors to contribute to that. I think that as a doctor, there's a lot of pressure to know everything. So like I was at a camp a couple of weeks ago. And someone was just doing something stupid. Like, they were at chance of falling off a tree or something and, I don't know, breaking a bone. And they're like, oh, it's fine, a doctor's here. And they're referring to me. And I was like, do you think I can mend a bone? Like, do you think I'm Dolores Umbridge? I don't know why she came to my mind.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, another technical... Honestly, today's been the worst with technical difficulties. My patience has been tested, but we're still here.
We are.
So we'll just resume. Basically, the point that I was making about some of the arrogance in the medical industry. I guess what I'm trying to, like, my biggest frustration is I get how much pressure is on doctors to be doctors and how much pressure there is to know it all. But I think it's also the role of doctors to earn and establish trust. It's not a given. I think that's where my problem becomes when I'm dealing with anyone in the medical industry, is when they think they are deserving of my trust because they did the unattainable, which is to get into med school, which is a phenomenal achievement. Like, I respect anyone who can do what it takes to get into med school and then get through med school and then practice as a good doctor. And most of them hopefully do that after they get in. But you don't get my trust by default. You might have to have a conversation with me where you have to listen to some of the stupid shit I have to say about, you know, healthcare related things and explain to me without simply saying, oh, but, you know, the textbook on pharmacology it's like, okay, just like speak my language and establish that trust instead of just thinking that it's a given.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. So I think I was talking before about the expectations that people expect us to be miracle workers and to know everything. Like people will, like in the middle of a conversation, people will just ask like a really specific question.
Yeah.
And then they'll turn to me and be like, right? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know everything.
Yeah.
And so.
But that's a good answer.
Yeah, I agree. But
I think that's a good answer. Look, I'm not 100% sure.
But the thing is, so I'm just trying to give you a bit of context first. A second thing is, I think a lot of people, when they go through trauma in life, will justify the trauma that they've gone through a skewed worldview. So I think that somewhat like not life is not fair. And I think that some people's lives are inherently harder than others. And I'm not saying that a doctor's life is so hard, blah, blah, blah. But I do think that the work-life balance of a doctor, of most specialties, that like are more, and most of them are competitive nowadays, let's be realistic. It's so unbalanced that it is actually borderline traumatic. Like when you're training for a specialty training, it's almost everyone gains anywhere from 5 to 20 kilos. Like their work-life balance will go completely out the window. So like one of the doctors that I'm working with, he used to be a professional violinist, like a national, like an Australian level violinist. And like he used to look so young and happy, and now he's like 15 kilos heavier and he hasn't touched a violin in so many years. And he works an absurd amount of like 100 hours a week or something, like something absolutely stupid. And then I think to myself, I'm just like, man, is this really worth it? Like, I think that the work is necessary. Like, obviously, there's a calling there, and the health system does incredible things. Like, now working in the hospital, I can tell you that my respect for the healthcare system has gone up so much because the scale at which we're able to do things and the things that we're able to achieve is incredible. It's so cool. There's a person for everything. Like, there's a patient who she's never been vaccinated, and she's getting an aortobifemoral bypass. I think I said that right. And it's a major operation, automatic ICU admission after the operation. It's a really big deal, but she's never been vaccinated, doesn't want to accept blood. And she doesn't want to get a blood transfusion. She's not a Jehovah's Witness, so it's not religious. So the criteria, the guidelines say she's not eligible for a term called autologous donation, which is her donating her own blood to herself. And I spoke to her partner today for 20 minutes on the phone. He was just so incredibly frustrated and angry and talking about how crap the system is. And I understand that. It's been very crappy to him in this particular instinct, but he's a very severe outlier. But then as a result, so the entire point of the system, it's built to do the same thing really, really well over and over. But when something changes and it needs to do something that's out of the ordinary, it's inherently inefficient. And that's the way that the healthcare system, at least in Australia, tends to be. We can do an incredible amount of things, but sometimes there's something that's outside the scope of traditional work. Well, let's say if you go into Wagga Wagga or something more rural, a doctor will be much more skilled there. Like a GP in Wagga Wagga will be much more skilled than a GP in Central Sydney. He's someone who will deliver babies on a regular basis. He'll deliver anesthesia. He'll do everything. But then a GP would never have touched a scalpel or a forceps in 10 years if they live in Sydney, some of them. You know what I mean? I just think it's the product of the entire situation. Like when I was younger, when I was a patient, before I was a doctor, my perception of healthcare was so different. Like it would be a Friday night and I'd visit someone in the hospital and they're like, oh, the doctor hasn't seen me in hours. I don't know what's going on. But now I'm on the other side. I'm like, oh, he's been here since 6:30 in the morning. His shift finishes at 4:30. Or if he's doing overtime, that whatever. But then there's the night doctor who's very junior and is only meant to hold the fort down until the morning. And then only if shit hits the fan is he supposed to do something. Like he's not supposed to attend to every beck and call. Because, for example, like my team will have anything up to like 20 patients, but there's 6 doctors on our team. So you'll have 6 doctors for up to 20 patients.
That's a pretty good ratio, isn't it?
Fine. That's the max it'll go to. And then, but when you're on nights, there are 3 doctors for the whole hospital. That's hundreds.
The whole hospital, 3 doctors.
I think for the whole of the new building, I think it's 3 doctors. I think so. But the ratio gets whack. Like I did an afternoon. I did a weekend shift before, and there are only, so there's MO 1 to 6, so medical officer 1 through 6. There were only 6 doctors for the majority of the hospital. And even then, that ratio is so many more times of patients for 1 doctor. Imagine nights. I was only working on Saturdays, which is just the weekends. Anyway, the point that I'm making is I understand what it's like on the other side now. And I understand the frustrations on both sides. I also understand the sheer amount of arrogance. But when a doctor has literally given
You're dealing at so much scale.
It's not even just that.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I want to talk about. The next thing is when they've given up their whole life, do you know the amount of sacrifice? Like, it's, for example, this one of the registrars, he's about to be a vascular surgeon in a couple of years. So he's in a very hard to get position. And he booked this gig in the city, like a concert in the city with his wife. He'd been waiting for it for 6 months. He was so keen. It was his birthday. And then he told everyone, tonight I'm leaving on time. Like, I'm only working for 12 hours today. Like, only 12 hours today. And I'm going to the city. I'm going to blah, blah, blah. The specialist wants to go pick up his kids. One person has COVID. So he went from working 0 hours over the weekend to working 48 hours over the weekend. He was the one on call, working constantly. So, and he gave up that concert. And that's just like, and I don't know, it sounds like nothing, but it's a death by 1,000 cuts. Like, you, over so many times, like, you will not be there for your kid's birthday. Your wife will not feel like you're there at home. You'll have an argument because there's just a bit of frustration. Like, these things will build up, and I've seen it firsthand. Like, so nonchalantly in like the doctor's room when we have a chat, and they'll be like, and like it'll be like younger doctors like me thinking about what specialty we want to go into, and then they're like, oh, maybe I should go into rheumatology. Like, every rheumatologist I know, they're still married, they're not divorced. Like, that's an accomplishment. They talk about it as if that's an accomplishment. But then, for example, like, oh, all of the gynecologists that I know are divorced, or all the cardiologists I know are divorced. Do you get the point? Like,
yeah.
They give up so much in their lives that the coping mechanism for some people is to perpetuate a skewed worldview. And so, for example, like, let's say I had a really traumatic experience with a dog growing up. And so as a result, my perception is that all dogs are wild, rabid animals that will ruin my life.
Yeah. It's like a guy that's heartbroken from some girl, and then he full flips, and like all women are evil.
And it becomes misogynistic and all these things. So the point that I'm making is I think that my hypothesis with a lot of doctors is that they have given up so much. They are so hyper specialized and respected in this one thing that they've devoted their entire lives to, that they get so much value from it. And as a result, they cling to it through arrogance. That's just, and I'm not saying all doctors or all specialists are arrogant. I actually think my faith in doctors has actually increased now that I'm on the other side, which is really weird, because typically when you go on the other side, you see like just how crappy it is. You'll see people at their worst and like the low points of the system. But now that I'm part of it, I actually have more respect for it than what I was as an outsider. So I do, but I also have seen what it's like when the doctors become arrogant. And that's just a fact of life. Like, you're not going to be avoidant of that completely.
No, I get you. Like, I do understand there is a lot of sacrifice in this line of work.
Yeah.
But in the interaction between a doctor and a patient, you've got someone who is sick and someone who is not.
Yeah.
And typically the one who is sick is going to need a little bit more attention, not just for their physical health, but also for their mental and emotional health. You know, that person in hospital that's like, I haven't heard from a doctor in 4 hours. You can understand why they're like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's not so much like, I get it, and especially after like I've got a number of friends who have gone down that road into the medical industry, and I've seen what it takes to even get there, let alone once you're there. But I think there's more to the job from my perspective, from an outside perspective. I think there's more to the job than just healing a person.
Yeah, a lot of it.
Like there is, you know, like most other industries, they've got a whole division devoted to sales.
Yeah.
How do we bring people to us? How do we get them to trust us, trust what we do, trust our services? Like anyone who runs a business is thinking about that constantly.
Yeah.
Doctors don't think about that.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to think about sales because it's like, oh, they come to us.
Yeah.
We've already got our lead pipeline.
Yeah.
Like if, for lack of a better word, right?
Yeah, but like no one's going to be, like they're always going to have sick illness in the world.
Yeah. But I think I still think it would be beneficial just generally to have a mindset of just because we've got the lead, it doesn't mean we can't do more to alleviate. And some doctors do this really well.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying all doctors are like this, of course. But again, this is all from an outside perspective. Like, bro, like, let's be real. I'm a guy that thinks pajamas are a scam. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not exactly the world's leading expert on what's appropriate for doctors to do.
Mm.
I actually think pajamas are a scam.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. I judge people who sleep with socks on.
I sleep with socks on.
What's
wrong with socks on? What are you talking about?
Andrew, just leave. I can't believe you just drank from this bottle of scotch. Anyone who sleep like you get in bed with socks on?
I get cold otherwise. Yeah. I have it's not you can Google
Good
it.
times create weak men.
It's called you can Google Raynaud's phenomenon. I don't have it, but I have something similar to that.
I don't need some made up phenomenon. No one should be sleeping
Why?
with no one.
What's wrong with it?
There is no good reason that I have heard to sleep. The only person who ever gave me a good reason, they said they've got to apply like a medicinal cream to their feet, and so they wear socks.
It's
so
a wet.
it doesn't.
It's a wet dressing. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm like, you know what? You're the first person who's got a pass. No one else has a good reason. Wearing socks in bed is like clapping when the plane lands.
That makes no sense to me.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
You've lost me on this one.
It's bad enough people wear pajamas. Honest, like we've got a subset of clothing for when you are unconscious. Tell me that's not the biggest scam.
Look, I think
Do you know there's a whole store devoted to just pajamas?
Peter Alexander.
I didn't know Peter Alexander just made pajamas.
Yeah.
Until a few years ago.
Yeah.
You got to stop wearing socks when you sleep. Man.
You haven't presented me with one good point. You just made allegories and you haven't made a single rational point.
I'll tell you what. Honestly,
no. Oh my goodness.
it's true.
All right, I'll
Do you think in Lebanon 150 years ago the men slept with socks on?
Brother, do you want to hear a story about the way people used to sleep in Lebanon? This is a true story, okay? So back in the Day'ah, now I don't know if this was in my Day'ah or whatever, but I remember old people reminiscing about this in my, like old people in my village talking about it. Back in the olden days, I don't know if it was like the early 20th century, they were so broke that there would be 5 families to a house. And the house was built by Hajar. Like they'd build a house out of rocks with their bare hands.
Mm.
And so there'd be 5 couples, married couples, sleeping in a single room. And so they would, like the wives would wear bells around their ankles. And each bell made a slightly different noise. And so when they got up in the middle of the night, they knew whose wife was who because it was dark and there were no lights.
Mm.
That's where...
See, nowhere in that story was anyone wearing socks.
They were wearing bells. And likely procreating.
If you wear a bell, you can wear socks. How's that for a deal?
All right, I'll
Anyway, look,
I'll meander.
My point is, I'm about as tinfoil hat as you get. Okay.
Yeah, continuing, yeah.
Whether it's pajamas or socks in bed or clapping when the plane lands. Like, bro, imagine that.
I get it.
Imagine that. Like, you take off for your honeymoon with your wife, starting your brand new life together, and you land in Spain, and as soon as it lands, she starts clapping.
And then you just get on the next plane and you never see her again.
You got no other option.
Of course. I know that's the moral thing to do.
If you're Catholic, let's hope it's not consummated.
It doesn't work like
because
that.
it's not. No, if it's not consummated, it's not bound yet.
Oh, you can wait a year, I think? Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Look, I'm no canon lawyer. All I know is at consummation, it becomes an unbreakable bond. Before that point, the Vatican can actually...
Interesting.
Even then, like that'd be a disaster. So we want to avoid these things. But my point is, being as tinfoil as I am, take what I say with a grain of salt about the medical industry. And as a joke for anyone listening about relax.
Yeah.
Just everyone relax.
Having a yarn.
Yeah. For the 6 people who are listening right now, just relax. No, but it's more so, it's like my perspective is just generally, I think it's important, regardless of what your role is in any job, don't take your leads for granted.
Yeah.
Don't take the people in front of you for granted. Like, you're here because you need, like, you're dealing with someone in quite a vulnerable position. And I guess it's easier said than done than say, hey, it takes a little bit more patience, because you guys have probably been patient for 14 hours that day. And like, you're only human. Like, it's almost unrealistic to say, hey, you lapsed for 3 seconds in a 15-hour shift. Shame on you. I wouldn't say that.
The expectations are actually very high because there's so much legal and ethical consideration to be made. Like, every time I have a conversation with someone from a different specialty, I have to document it. Like, I make a note that stays on the patient's file forever. I discussed with dermatology the patient's situation. Dermatology is going to come and see them later on. Because if that patient, that thing that dermatology was going to come see turns out to be cancer and they die of skin cancer, they're going to go back and be like, why wasn't this investigated? I would be held responsible. But then they'd be like, oh, hold on a minute. Andrew documented that he spoke with dermatology and dermatology never came and saw this patient. I'm making this up, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right? And then the onus would no longer be on me.
So it's a constant chess game of shifting blame.
Literally. That's the way that the medical system works right now.
Yeah.
And there is no other way, because you're dealing with people's lives. And so there needs to be accountability.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And so I know it sounds really crappy.
That
in theory.
I feel like we do mostly pretty well in this country. Like, it's pretty, like, there is a lot of accountability for healthcare professionals.
And the culture here is very different. So like, after I graduated medical school, people were just like, oh, where are the photos of you in the white coat or whatever? And have you heard of the term white coat hypertension before?
I've never heard of white coat hypertension. I know the
hypertension is just blood pressure.
Blood pressure, yeah. But I know that the Americans wear white coats, but we don't.
Yeah.
Because apparently we don't feel like it makes doctors...
Like, we're on the same level as people. So a lot of doctors just wear like business casual, really. Like, they'll wear a button up. They don't even wear a tie. They'll just wear button up and chinos and RM Williams. I'm wearing RM Williams right now. Everyone wears them.
Yeah, they're equal like everyone else. Everyone else is wearing $600 shoes. Yeah. They're just like the regular peasants.
Why do you do that?
You said they're like everyone else. They wear RM Williams.
No, but like,
the white coat's cheaper. That's all I'm saying.
It is cheaper. It is cheaper. But the point that I'm making, the point that I'm making is that with this lack of white coats, like, that's part of the culture in Australia. So we try and be on the same level as the patient. So doctors are always going to introduce themselves as, hey, I'm Andrew. I'm part of this team. They don't say, oh, I'm Dr. this and my position is this. Like, it's not like, specialists will often introduce themselves by their first name as well.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of them will. But then the patient, out of respect for the doctor, will say, oh, doctor, whatever.
Honestly, if I was in a hospital and someone's like, oh, hey, I'm David, I'm like, are you a doctor? Because if the answer's no, you can leave.
What happened to the skepticism of the medical?
No, I'm skeptical, but I want the most qualified. It's like when you go to the dentist, right? You go to a dentist for a routine clean, and you think you're going to see a dentist.
Yeah.
And like, oh, we've got our dental hygienist
Yeah.
He'll be with you in a second. I was like, hold on, sweetheart.
I'm not paying $300 for 15 minutes of your
I'm paying dentist rates.
Yeah.
Power to this dental hygienist. I'm sure some people are okay with it, but if I'm paying dentist rates,
Yeah.
I better get a bloody dentist.
Yeah.
You know, one time I ended up with a dental hygienist, like, maybe it was like, I don't know, her first teeth clean. I don't know what it was. But she asked me like 7 times if I was okay.
Yeah.
She would stop and be like, are you comfortable? Are you okay with this process? I'm like, cuz, you don't have to ask for my consent every like 5 seconds.
Oh my goodness. Can I touch you?
Yeah. yeah.
Can I touch your tooth?
Yeah. Have you seen the barber video?
I have.
Yeah.
I have.
You know, oh, can I touch you? Nah. Yeah, cut my hair without touching me.
Oh goodness.
So she'd stop cleaning my teeth to be like, oh, is everything okay?
And you're just like sitting
Are
there
you
with
feeling any discomfort? I'm like, to be honest, I am feeling discomfort.
with your mouth agape, full of fluoride.
Oh,
it was
it's
like,
horrible. So the next time I made a booking, I was like, I want a dentist. They're like, oh, they're all just as qualified to clean. I'm like, yeah, that's okay. I need a bit more qualification, says the dropout. Yeah, I'm compensating for my lack of qualification. Anywhere I go, I demand double the qualification
to make up for yours and theirs.
to make up for what I'm lacking. 100%.
Fair.
Yeah, look, I am a skeptical person generally, but look, recently I was unwell and I consulted yourself and your brother, and I took your advice on board. So I've become a lot more. I've been opening myself up a little bit more.
Yeah, just listening to 2 of your best friends who you trust with your life to tell you advice that is their profession. Just
yeah, like I mean, I only just listened.
It's not really an achievement,
and I had to wait till both of you achieved consensus.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like a little safety trigger I've implemented.
So the point that I was making about white coat hypertension. So in America, the culture is very different. There's a very big disparity between cultures and patients there. But in Australia, the culture is much more, it's much more equal. Yeah. And I think that's nice. I think it is cool because doctors, whilst obviously their opinion needs to be respected because they're experts in the field, I don't think it makes them better than anyone else. But at the same time, we spend a lot of our time doing things to placate the patient. Like things that we know will make zero difference to the patient's outcome, but we just do it for their sake.
But will contribute to their comfort. And
Yeah.
Which I think is good. I
Yeah.
think that's good.
Like we had a patient today that was like really frustrated because she'd been in the hospital for 2 days and she hadn't showered and changed her clothes. And she was angry at the doctors for that. Like, how is it? Like, how am I supposed to know what clothes you came in with? Like, I've got all these patients to see. I've got a million meetings. I've got so many things to do. I don't keep track of, oh, she's been wearing these clothes for 2 days. It's just not in my job description. So anyway, you cop it and you move on. So there's so many things we do on a day to day. Like there was a patient, she's well past her date of being discharged. Like there's nothing more we can do for her. And she was just like, oh, I feel a stomach. Like she always looks for an excuse to stay because she just likes the free food, I guess. But
or the attention.
Yeah, possibly.
Or just having some company.
And like we've done every test. Like I don't just say this lackadaisically. Like we've done every test and we know like there's nothing wrong. And then as soon as we get close to discharge and as soon as you mention it, oh, I feel like a bit of pain here. Can you do an x-ray? I think there's an infection. X-rays don't look for infection. There's just a whole thing. Like you have to go through a dance because like in that case, you're putting them through radiation unnecessarily. Like that is a harm. You know what I'm saying?
It'd probably kill the infection.
It doesn't. I
know it doesn't. I'm not that retarded. Yeah.
No, you're not. So it's honestly a dance. Constantly. It's just like placating your peers. In showing
it's a
them
real
respect.
mental game, with some of these patients, like
with everything. Like because it's a very multidisciplinary approach. So like as part of on the vascular surgery team, like we liaise with podiatrists a lot, with wound nurses a lot, and you deal with them on a very regular basis, and you have to maintain that rapport. And so sometimes like you'll do things to make them feel as though their opinion is being heard. Simply like you know what they're about to say, but you give them that bit of extra time to elaborate what they're going to say, to make them feel valued and heard. There's just a million things you have to consider.
Yeah.
And that's just part of the game.
Mm. Does your hospital let people sleep with socks on?
They like almost have to. It's a falls risk. You know those like grippy socks? You know the socks that are the red with the white like gel pads on the bottom?
Mm.
Yeah. Like we give them, again, most of my patients are old. Like the youngest patient I have is like 60.
Yes. A conspiracy to weaken the feet of patients in hospital.
Oh, okay. We're going to go over the knees over toes.
I never even said knees over toes. All I said is the weakening of the feet. No, I'm joking. Look, socks in hospital, we'll let that one slide. At home, I'll have to think about
The
it.
entire point is not letting the patient slide.
Not letting them slide.
So that they don't fall and break their femur. And then, yes.
Especially the elderly ones.
Oh, horrible. So you know that. So
that's usually how most elderly people end up dying, right?
For not most, like, but a lot of them, yeah. Falls will precipitate their deconditioning and their eventual demise. But in all honesty, like, just as like a not so fun fact, when someone breaks their hip, they will almost always operate on that patient. Even if they're likely to die from the operation, they will still operate because not operating on a broken femur, on a broken hip, is a certain death anyway. Because they're going to be bedbound, they'll never walk again. They'll likely get blood clots because the femoral artery runs through that bone. You'll just bleed everywhere, and like they repair it very quick, depending on how it's broken. That's a not so fun fact.
Yeah.
Anyway, I do want to move on from medicine because I spent 11 hours there today and want to talk about something else. I'm keen to talk about business. I'm keen to talk about world events. I'm keen to talk about anything.
I think what you're doing here, Andrew, is you can see I'm zoning in
About?
On some of these conspiracies.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding.
I already told you I spent 10 and a half hours a day playing Flappy Bird.
Yeah. No, that's all right. Well, respect. This is just last thing.
Yeah.
Last thing.
Yeah.
You know, during COVID,
yes,
when there was this whole like, first responders get free Krispy Kreme and all that crap.
Yeah.
And it was like, who's a first responder? My thought was like, first responder, you know, like you've got sort of your emergency staff at the hospital, the doctors, the nurses, paramedics. But
they see some crazy shit, man.
My sister was a radiographer at the hospital, and she said she was a first responder.
She isn't.
Man, she got so mad when I told her she's not a first responder. I'm like, this is just bullshit. Now everyone inside the hospital is apparently a first responder. Like, cuz you snap photos, you know what I mean? You just wait behind the shield and like, you know, press the button and...
They run out of the room so emphatically to get zero radiation.
Yeah, but I mean, like during COVID, when it was like anyone related to the healthcare industry thought they were all equal in terms of contribution. It's like, just relax.
I also don't appreciate the idea of some people's jobs being labeled as essential and other people's not. Like,
that was a whole different thing.
Let's not go into that.
No, we'll stay away from COVID because who's got the energy?
Yes.
Who's got the energy for that?
You know, everyone, like all my patients have COVID now anyway. You treat them with antivirals and you move on. That's about it.
Yeah, I mean, probably should have adopted that sooner. But what do I know?
Anyway.
What do I know?
Yeah.
We're actually pushing quite a bit of time here. It's actually getting quite late.
Oh. I'm laissez-faire.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll move on. What you did mention something just now that you'd rather bring up. What was that?
I'd rather talk about anything: business, current world events.
Yeah.
Music, anything.
Well, do you know about the e-safety commissioner?
No.
Do you know Australia has an e-safety commissioner?
I'm assuming he's some...
She, Andrew.
The way you looked at me was so politically correct.
She.
I invalidated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was invalidating. She exists.
Yeah.
And she has a name, which if the internet on this, honestly, I'm like literally an inch from smashing this thing, but the internet isn't working. But
yeah.
Basically, we have an e-safety commissioner, and under Australian law, there was some e-safety bill passed. The e-safety commissioner can request to any social media agency to remove, like make a submission to remove any piece of online content it deems to be dangerous
That's so
or
bad.
harmful.
That's horrible. That's such a slippery slope.
It's horrible.
And do you know what's crazy? There are probably some people listening to this podcast right now that will think it's crazy for me to think that's bad.
Yeah, those people probably aren't listening to my podcast at this stage.
Yeah,
That's the reality. But maybe one day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. Most people think that's okay. But so what happened is, remember the stabbing of Marmari?
Yeah.
That video was put on Twitter.
Yeah.
And like you could see the full video of someone coming and stabbing. Now it's not like there was blood gushing. And
no, because the
you
knife
saw
didn't
the hit.
actually.
It was a little, it didn't open, and
Yeah.
he's obviously hit him in the eye in some way. And
Yeah.
there are worse videos out there. It's still graphic, but there are worse videos.
Yeah.
Anyway, the e-safety commissioner requests all social media outlets to take this thing down, which they all do except for Twitter or
Yeah.
X,
Hmm.
because Elon Musk is like,
Oh, I saw a thing with him in Australian media.
Yeah.
Why is Australian media so bad?
it's an embarrassment. Like we're second probably just like to Canada at this stage.
Bro. Canada's can't even mention
It's a
it.
joke.
Yeah.
So what happens is they ask Twitter to remove it, and Musk says, "Look, we're not going to remove it. It doesn't make sense for any one country to have the ability to remove content that's available to all countries."
Yeah.
Like, think about that.
That is very weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even worse than the slippery slope of authoritarianism that I was considering.
Yeah, exactly. He made a really good point on that.
Yeah.
So he actually challenged it in court in Australia, and he said, in the meantime, we'll just censor it in Australia only, but it will remain on our servers. Like, she wanted it deleted.
Mm.
I'm pretty sure he ended up winning the court challenge. She was advised, look, you have no chance here, pretty much.
Yeah.
But it's pretty dangerous, man. There was actually an article, I think 18 months ago, written about an athlete like a trans athlete that moved to Australia and started playing one of our sports here and was just like demolishing girls.
Surprise.
And that article was completely censored online on the back of the e-safety commissioner.
But what does that have to do with anything?
It's harmful to a community.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
And like Elon Musk posted on Twitter a graph showing by country who makes the most requests to social media to remove content, and Australia was leading by far.
I didn't think we were that bad.
We've gotten that bad. Like, we have an e-safety commissioner. It's a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a joke.
Imagine, like, her job is to actually be on her phone for 10 and a half hours a day.
Pretty much, yeah.
Scrolling through Twitter.
And the greatest irony of it all is she used to be an employee at Twitter.
Oh.
Yeah, some American, I want to say Canadian, but I don't know. But
you can just assume they're Canadian.
Yeah, but like some American lady who used to work at Twitter.
Yeah.
And now her job here is to just, and mind you, she's not elected. She's an appointed commissioner. And so her agenda just flourishes through all her requests to remove stuff.
That's so weird.
Online.
Yeah.
It's actually quite scary.
Yeah, it is.
But the problem in Australia is there's a huge sort of indifference. There's a huge indifference towards like a lot of these political issues. So Aussies give the US a lot of flack.
Yeah.
Oh, look at America, it's so polarized, it's this and that. I just think, well, it's actually good that it's polarized because it shows that people have taken a side. Whether or not we take a side, there is still a side to be taken.
Yeah.
But we're just too indifferent as a people.
Oh, Australians don't care.
Yeah.
They're actually so relaxed about so many things. Yeah. I think
Not all of them, but too many of them. Yeah.
Look, I think that the more east you go, the less ethnic that you get, the more laissez-faire you will be. I feel it myself whenever I'm in the eastern suburbs or I'm in like Sydney CBD or anything like that, or whenever I deal with like, I just see an entirely different side to Australia. I see people that are really way more relaxed. Like, for example, we were in Tukli. You were telling me a story ages ago. This is up in the Central Coast. It's much more quiet and slow paced there. It's like an hour and a half from Sydney. And like, you were telling me one day that someone picked out your dad, that he was from Sydney, from how quickly he got out of the car.
Yeah, he just pulled into a Bunnings. He wasn't even in a rush. He just got out of the car, walked towards the doors, and someone said, "Oh, you must be from Sydney."
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, mate, we can see you from a mile away."
Because
just by the way
the sense of urgency with which he conducted himself,
which he didn't even realize he had.
Yeah. Compared to them. So, yeah. I think there's a big difference, and And that's another thing. People are so varied. Like I see that every day. People are so different. And that's just the way things are. Like
our reference point's also different. Like when you compare the United States to Australia or compare Lebanon to Australia.
Yeah.
Lebanon is like on another level when it comes to their loyalty to politicians. Like we're talking, this doesn't even happen in America. In Lebanon, people have photographs of their political leaders.
Yeah.
In their living rooms.
It becomes their personality.
Yeah.
And I think that like being a Republican or Democrat almost becomes like a personality trait in America, but it's loyalty to an ideology or just to a particular spectrum of political belief. But in Lebanon, it's to a person or a group of people. People are different. They're removed from ideology necessarily.
Yeah.
And so I just think that loyalty to a person, because people are more fallible than ideas, right? And an idea, if it's true, is unchanging. It's inherently true, depending. But what I'm saying is a person is way more fallible. If I'm correct now, I won't be correct necessarily in 10 years. And so I think that being loyal to a fault to a person or a political party is way different from being loyal to a fault to a set of ideals.
Yeah.
I actually think it's better to be loyal to a set of ideals because they're unchanging. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. It's like if you say to someone in Lebanon, why do you support this person? They're usually not going to respond with, generally they have a more conservative fiscal policy.
Yeah.
No, it's going to be, back in 1982, what happened was that guy's family came to our village with guns and this guy stood up to them and
they protected our family.
And they just talk about the person. So I completely agree, yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Western world, generally, there's more of an alignment with the ideas.
Yeah.
Although I think here people seem to mistake certain parties with certain ideas.
Yeah.
That may have existed 30 years ago or 20 years ago.
Yeah. Things
like now to call the Liberals conservative, I wouldn't really characterize them as conservative. Are there conservatives in the Liberal Party? I would say so, but as a party, they've probably moved a lot closer to the center than than perhaps they used to be. But another thing as well, conservatism here doesn't compare to like conservatism. Like if you say to someone here, who was the ultimate conservative? They're like, John Howard. You know, like John Howard would have been labeled like some raging lefty in America.
Yeah.
Because he took the guns. You know what I mean?
Well, also because he introduced GST.
Yeah, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like our concept of a conservative is so different. You know, you talk to a lot of conservatives here are also anti-gun, you know, and like the gun stuff is its own conversation probably for another time.
Yeah.
But it's always been, in fact, that was one of the conversations we had on our first podcast on your show.
Yeah.
The very first episode of Real Talk with Andrew, we spoke about guns.
Yeah.
And I said how it should be any person's right to shoot someone point blank in the face if they threaten their family's life.
That was so long ago.
Yeah. Still remains true.
Yeah. Oh. You know, I'd never given guns thought back then. I've given them a lot more thought nowadays. And I do, because back then I never actually shot, like, I never really handled a gun much either, to be honest.
Yeah.
But since then, like, I've gone hunting, I've done things. In Lebanon, you can shoot, whatever. Yeah. So it is a bit different now.
So you're pro gun now?
I'm less opposed to them than I was back then. Yeah.
So you're pro gun.
We don't have to put labels on things.
We have to label everything.
Yeah.
I'm all about labels.
Just get the dynamo.
Look, as Christian said last week, it's all about having definition, you know?
Yeah.
So, no, that's fair enough. Look, guns has always been a tough one. I don't think I've like my endorsement of the idea is very much just that, the idea.
Yeah.
I can't say that I know exactly how all these things work perfectly in practice.
And that's the hard part, right? Like, I find it difficult to advocate for an idea when I can't advocate for it to the nth degree.
Yeah.
That's what I personally find a bit difficult.
But is that the case? Like, take healthcare. Like, we have publicly funded healthcare, right?
And I see a lot of problems with that system.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's not binary. It's not like either everything's covered by the public or it's not, right?
Yeah.
Like there are some things which you would probably agree should be covered.
Well, we have a hybrid system now. In fact, even a lot of people that I speak to who are very pro private health insurance, they very much, like, the majority of them are still for the idea that emergency medicine should be publicly funded. So that safety net of if shit hits the fan, anyone can go there at any time.
Yeah.
That's crowdfunded. But then your own healthcare is through your own private health insurance. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think, I haven't really met someone who's so pro private health insurance that they're not even for private emergency medicine.
Yeah, I get that. But all I'm saying is if you can only advocate for an idea, if you can advocate it to the nth degree, it almost makes all ideas binary. But many ideas are implemented on a spectrum.
Yeah. It's prudence, right?
It's like, do you tax 0 or do you tax 50%? It's like, no, maybe
17.5 or
is fine. Yeah.
I very much, my desire for what I just said before, to want to extrapolate some and live by something to the nth degree, that comes out of my desire to be an integrated person. I want to be someone who, I want to have, like, you know how back in English they tell you, oh, you should have your, your thesis? And then, so that thesis statement at the beginning of your essay, every single sentence should link back to that essay. That's just lazy English teacher speak for, you should, like, your idea, your essay should support your idea emphatically. Every word, every argument that you make will somehow lead into that. And that's my desire as a person. So, for example, if I have the ethos of, I want to leave the world better than when I entered it, I want to walk into a bathroom, and if I see that the toilet seat is like has a hair on it and it's like messy, I'll wipe it down before and flush the toilet. I want to leave the bathroom looking better than when I entered it. Does that make sense? Like, it doesn't have to be as as big as a thing as, oh, I cured hepatitis B or whatever. So that's my desire for wanting to advocate for something to the nth degree. But obviously there's a danger in everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, the prudence comes into that. But yeah.
No, that's fair enough. Look, we got time, Andrew. Just generally, I think we're going to be seeing each other around a bit.
Yeah, you reckon?
I think so.
Okay.
Like, we're just having a podcast now, but eventually we're going to kick back, have an Aggie or something, and then bam, we're going to bring up guns. And when I say bam, I just meant like the idea comes, not
physically.
Yeah, no shooting, of course.
Yeah,
we're in Australia. The guns are only for the government here.
Amen.
As Tucker Carlson said, the government has a monopoly
on guns,
on violence. Just in that video we just listened to.
Yeah.
He said, why should the government only have a monopoly on
I said that was a good point when he said
violence.
it.
Yeah, it is a pretty good point.
Yeah.
But it is a tough one. But then you have countries like, Japan, where obviously they've got gun control.
But they also have the Yakuza. The way that Japan works is that petty crime, small crime is basically zero, because any crime that occurs is at an organized level. So the Yakuza have their own turfs, and then the Yakuza, it's kind of like the gangs in like South America or whatever. They will actually protect their local constituents to garner their support. So they will look after these local people who are in their districts or in their turf. And so part of that is making sure that there's no petty crime. And so in Japan, people don't steal. Well, one, because their culture is like very repressive and polite and whatever. But two, because they're actually more afraid of what the Yakuza will do to them than what the police will do to them. Do you get what I'm saying?
Interesting.
So,
because they will effectively be stepping on someone's lawn.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
And so in Japan, you have the effect of there being little to no petty crime and that being diverted into organized crime. And like for the average Joe Blow, that's better for them. And better anecdotally, right? Not objectively. because they just don't witness or experience the crime.
Yeah, they don't have to deal with their pocket, being picked and
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
wallet being stolen or their house being broken into.
Exactly. So it's anecdotally better,
Mm.
but that's part of the byproduct.
That's the trade-off.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
But if they had guns.
Yes.
Now, look, the gun topic, I got to find someone in Australia who can talk about guns extensively.
Yeah. I'm not learning enough about the topic. I have opinions.
To be honest, neither. Like, I have
Yeah.
some strong, and I say it in the most inflammatory way deliberately.
Yeah.
But it would be good to speak to some people, especially who were, we had the Port Arthur massacre, which led to the gun buyback. And yeah, it would be interesting to hear both
Wasn't
sides.
that also Tucker Carlson's fault?
What is it?
Wasn't that also
It was his fault, yeah. He contributed with the shoes that he was wearing.
Yeah. Because they were the same shoes that the
Well, his shoes had laces, and so did Hitler's shoes.
Oh, right.
And that's, yeah.
My mistake.
Look, with my wisdom, you can make these links, and I'm trying to, that's why I have this show,
Yeah.
sort of teach people how to make these.
Such a philanthropist.
Yeah. Philanthropist, philosopher, the ultimate wisdomer, you know what I mean?
It was so kind of you to just tell Christian Stevens how to be a philosopher and theologian.
Yeah, I wouldn't dare to do that. The guy had me defining every word I say. Like, he kept me on my toes. It was good.
Yeah.
It was a good guest to have.
Yeah. I'd be mad.
What I'm thinking is when I eventually have like an actual Jamie, I actually want to get like a screen set up so that we can actually pull up content quite quickly.
Yeah.
Because I think episodes
do you want it to be here so that the cameras can see, or do you want it on the other side?
No, it's better here because when we're watching that, there would be a camera switch that would actually show the screen. The camera feed for the audience. You know how like Patrick Bet-David's podcast?
Yeah. So,
it'll cut to the camera.
But Joe Rogan's is both. So they'll have a screen that the people can see here, and then it will cut to the feed.
Well, they can see it, but they usually show it on the screen.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so you can show it, but ultimately they're going to look
Doesn't
at
really matter.
It doesn't really matter, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really have the space. Like, I could put like a screen here where the logo is showing on
You
the
have to
screen.
run wires, or
It's
maybe
fine.
just show the logo on the screen.
That's what you could do, yeah. So you have the logo on the screen and then cut. Or I could just have something sort of there. I don't know. We'll work it out.
Yeah.
But it would be good to sort of bring up content a little bit quicker
Yeah.
and actually go through it.
Yeah.
Because like I actually can't describe in words the rage I felt with the internet today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it was there. Whatever, it happens. But it just meant it's hard to bring up things quickly.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And just like keep it rolling. And so you sort of have them ready and you can just sort of fly through them.
Yeah.
But maybe that'll be for another episode.
The budget expansion.
I need a budget. Sponsors, man. That's what I need.
We'll sort it out.
I need the sponsors to roll in. Andrew, it's been a pleasure.
God bless.
An honor. And
Thanks for having me.
I think every time you get a new jacket like that, you're coming on the show.
All right, done.
So you're going to have to make some...
now my budget has to be that.
Yeah. Well, look, that jacket doesn't look cheap. We don't need you to drop numbers, but it doesn't look like it's your average jacket.
Look, was it R.M. Williams money? Maybe not.
Look, you screwed yourself when you said the doctors are just like any other person. They wear R.M. Williams.
To be fair, they literally last 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's actually like cheaper than your regular Tommy Hilfiger you buy for
It's
100.
cheaper over 20 years, but
Yeah.
most people don't outlay the money. No, I agree. I have a pair as well.
Yeah.
Full transparency, I have a pair. They were forced on me.
Yeah?
They were a gift.
Oh, that's a generous gift.
Yeah, a gift from like 10 people.
Oh, okay.
And what happened is I was watching Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder, the first fight.
Yep.
In my living room on a Sunday.
Bro, that was a good fight.
Amazing fight.
Yeah.
If I watched it. Because then someone knocks on the door
Yeah.
and it's two of the boys. And they're like, Francis, we're going for a drive. And I said, listen, I love you guys so much, but get off my property. They're like, no, Francis, we've got to go now. And I was like, listen, I don't think you understand.
There is not.
I will literally become Deontay Wilder on this front porch.
Yeah.
It'll be lights out. Anyway, I get in the car. We start driving. We take the M4. I was like, where are we going? Oh, we're going to Castle Hill. Why are we going to Castle Hill? We went to the R.M. Williams store in Castle Hill.
Yeah.
Because apparently the one in my area was not good enough.
Is there an R.M. Williams in your... Okay.
There was. Oh, actually, there still is. Yeah.
I only know of Castle Hill and George Street in the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So look, don't get me wrong. I'm very grateful, and it was a phenomenal gift.
Yeah.
I'm very appreciative. But the fight, and I wasn't streaming. So you know those articles where it's like a news feed that keeps updating.
Yeah.
And
Live
I
tweets
just-
or whatever.
Yeah, and I just kept refreshing it,
Oh.
and it's like Tyson down in the 12th,
Stop.
Fury's down in the
That's
12th.
so sad. Why would
and
you
I'm
do
like,
that?
I'm literally shaking.
Why would you do that?
I was literally shaking, and then it was a draw, and I had to watch the replay. And they didn't get it. They weren't.
Wasn't
like
that the World Cup with you as well? Like with Messi and.
we're not talking about the World Cup. We're not going to talk about.
I'm
the World
opening
Cup.
up your past traumas.
No. I'm actually need to get a counselor on before I.
We're gonna have to finish this bottle.
We actually will finish the bottle, and it'll get bad. No World Cup talk.
Yeah.
I'm not ready for that. I just got over the RM Williams Tyson Fury.
All right,
thing.
so we'll make a list of things we can't talk about. Francis's quadriceps
Yep,
and the FIFA World Cup.
we'll start with those two.
Yeah.
Done. Andrew, it's been a pleasure.
God bless you.
and
Thank
an
you. bro.
honor, and God willing, until next time.
Yeah.
And all the best with your internship.
Because I talk to you every day.
Yeah. No, but for what we got for our guests, man.
Yeah, all 6 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there could be more now once we have the most eligible bachelor in Sydney.
Again, you remember that video you posted of you talking to yourself on your Instagram?
Mm.
Yeah, that was just the most eligible bachelor in Sydney talking to himself.
No, it wasn't. No, you got to remember, even though I'm interviewing people I might know well, I also have to keep in mind the audience.
Yeah.
The job that I have, Andrew, it's not like any other job.
It's-
I represent thousands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's it. It was ignorant of me.
But you know what? I take back the all the best. Right.
You know what?
Yeah.
I hope you have a horrible night.
I'm glad you said that. You didn't say the have you seen the viral video?
No.
The Hawk 2 video?
Oh, stop. Yes.
Again, Andrew,
Yeah, sorry. We'll cut it there. I still have work tomorrow.
the next part will be off camera, don't worry.
Yeah, done.
You can say what you want to say after, but
Yeah,
thanks
done.
again, and
Thanks,
God
bro.
bless.